Sleepy town settled for the night, where every lawn is tailored just right. And it's about time that the back porch light comes on. At that house down the street, at that house on Magnolia Street.
I'm here. Did I scare you?
You did scare me.
I'm sorry.
I went off the fucking deep end with this guy.
I saw. I'm like, holy shit.
And then you added your stuff. I think this is going to be a really fun episode.
Honestly, I didn't like look too much into him or like know anything about him until I looked at the notes last night, because you hit me up this weekend and you're like, hey, can you look this up? And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm looking up. Like, I don't know anything about this guy. I don't know anything about anything. And like, I had no context. So I'm like, you're like, yeah, just like look it up in the book. And I'm like, all right. So I looked up like the practical magic books I thought you were talking about. So I'm like looking up the keyword, which is Don Quixote, right? I was looking that up in the book. You're like, not that book. And I'm like, oh, she must mean the actual book, Don Quixote, which I don't have. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm even looking up.
It's all good. Thanks for fielding those. I was just like scrambling because that was like the one little piece of the puzzle that I had not gotten yet.
Came through, right? Your cousin came through?
She's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, she was like, anytime you need help researching shit, if you can't find it, let me know. Okay.
All right. So we have a volunteer researcher.
I know. She's amazing. She knows like 5 languages. She picked up one, and then the other, she was like, I'm gonna learn Japanese now. I'm gonna learn Italian now.
No skin off my back. Yeah, I'm just gonna learn a language. Like, she just picks it up at the store.
Like, like at the library.
And takes it off the shelf and like, yep, I'll take that one today. I'll just speak Japanese today.
Amazing.
Amazing. Yeah.
You know what I realized in editing? When one of us says something funny, the other one just repeats that thing while laughing.
That's funny.
It is funny. Just okay.
Hey, witch, hey.
Hey, witch, hey.
How's it going?
How you flowing?
How you flowing?
Showing.
Tomorrow, I turn fucking 40.
That's incredible.
Tomorrow.
Oh my gracious.
Crazy to me.
We are recording this December 19th.
Yeah. One day before my birthday. It doesn't feel like it though, because tomorrow's a Wednesday and I always take off the Friday for my birthday instead, because I'm like, who the fuck cares? It's on a Wednesday. No one's around on a Wednesday. What am I gonna do by myself on my day off on a Wednesday?
What are you gonna do?
Well, tomorrow I'm going to work.
Oh, you took off Friday. Got it.
I took off Friday, yeah. So Friday I booked massages for me and Avi, and then we're going to the city.
Okay.
Friday's gonna be a good time.
I'm just so happy that I get to experience your 40th with you, and I got to know you so much more over this past year and a half. You're an amazing woman. Happy 40th. If I don't get to talk to you tomorrow, you're a little Spitfire. You're the wind beneath my wings, and I love you.
I love you too.
And I wish I could go get a massage.
Oh, you can.
I gotta go book my session.
You can go. What are you waiting for? Okay, so how about this? How about for my birthday, I want you to go for your fucking massage.
Okay. I need one.
Go.
It sounds
you have it. I gave you the package. It's there. You just gotta book your date. Book it.
I know. But we're not talking about me. We're talking about you. And I wish you all the best this amazing 40th for you.
Thank you.
A magical person.
Oh, so are you. This is me being awkward.
All right. It was in this circle jerk. I'm Kristina.
Deflecting the compliments, but I appreciate it. I appreciate you, and I can't wait to take on another year and make more music with you in the coming year. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Me too. Yeah. I was listening to our catalog this week.
Yeah.
I'm also trying to think of what we were doing your birthday last year.
What were we doing?
We did, bookmark your birthday was 90s witch fashion, and then we did Magnolia Street Song-a-sode.
We did the Magnolia Street Song-a-sode around my birthday?
It was the 23rd, yep.
Oh shit. So I had just turned 39.
Oh my God. What did you do last year?
I don't remember. What did I do last year? It might have been a low-key birthday because it was like nothing. It's not a milestone, so nobody gives a fuck. I don't remember. I don't remember what I did. I think my brother was home.
Mm.
We went to a restaurant, and I think maybe that was it. I don't even remember. See, you turn over 30, and your memory just starts going.
Gotta
And
get the ginkgo biloba. Well, I hope this one's memorable.
I hope so too. I'm sure it will be. I don't think any surprises are gonna be happening because
But
I
what if
told
they
you the whole,
are?
I told you the whole
I
spiel,
know.
that
I'm
whole shit.
sorry.
But I think we might try to plan something bigger, like a banger,
Yeah.
for January.
Nice.
I left it in Avi's hands. I said, "Okay, this is your second chance. Don't disappoint."
Don't fuck it up. I'm glad you did that. That's good.
Yeah. So Friday will be more low key, just a small group, and more intimate, but it's gonna be beautiful. We're going to dinner at this really cool place. It's called Temple Court. Look it up on Google. It looks so freaking cool. I think it's also a hotel.
Oh.
I don't know, but like the bar area, it's just gorgeous. It's just got this like really old time kind of feel. And it's also kind of got like a little bit of a gothic flair. There's
Ooh.
a huge portrait of Edgar Allan Poe on the wall. I
I
saw
told you
that
about this. This
and
is
I was like,
beautiful.
it's gorgeous. I was like, I need to eat here. It's very
There's the Poe picture. It's like you're having dinner in a library, but also it's like Great Gatsby's library
yes.
almost.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stunning.
Look it
Wow.
up.
What are you gonna
Yeah.
wear?
Well, okay, so after that, we're going to that orchestra that I was telling you about, the candlelit Nutcracker suite. Whole symphony playing the Nutcracker with, by candlelight in this like old cathedral. It's gonna be so freaking gothic and epic, and I think I'm gonna wear a ball gown.
Please take photos. You're
Yeah.
living the Gothic Victorian auntie dream. First, we're gonna grab dinner at this fancy restaurant. Then we're gonna wrap up the night with this concert. And you should have seen my ball gown.
I'm telling you, I have officially entered my Victorian lady era,
I'm so
and
excited.
I'm fine with that. I'm excited about it.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
blow you up tomorrow. But yeah, man. I'm Kristina.
I'm Justina. Hey guys.
Welcome to Magnolia Street, the one and only musically inspired practical magic fandom podcast.
Every week we deep dive on different aspects of the movie and the books, as well as treat your ears to our very own practical magic inspired original music.
This week we are diving into the histories of this very popular 17th century artist by the name of Gustave Dore.
What does Gustave have to do with practical magic? Well, Monsieur Dore has a very sneaky presence in the film, multiple times actually, but in the same scene, right?
Mhm,
It goes
mhm,
by
very
really quick.
fast.
All three of them go by very fast. And I was looking at your notes further down a little bit. You can't even see the full page of like a couple of them?
He's there though, and we found out through one of our guests.
Yeah. So you can only see one of the full pages.
Yes.
But then the two of them, the only way we found out was through our guest and their replica, and they did research on this, I guess, this artist
Mm-hmm.
through the one piece that is actually visible.
Thank you, Isis Chandler, for your help. We talked about it on her episode a little bit,
Yeah.
and then I contacted her again just for any further information because there's one other picture in this Book of Shadows called like the hunted one or the unknown one or the haunted one, something like that. Couldn't find the artist, but I know you would know the picture, and I was like, is this a Gustave? She was
Yeah.
like, I couldn't tell. I looked. I don't think it is. So she was also helpful with continuing the information for this episode.
Is it the one with just like the silhouette? It's like a shadow on the
Yes.
page? Okay, yeah. Because I also saw that one because I went back through the film last night and I was like pausing just to see if like I missed anything. And I paused it multiple times, like as she flipped each page, and I saw that one and I was like, oh, that one's interesting. And I was wondering like why you didn't include it. I thought that was also Gustave. Because
Yeah, I
it looks
couldn't
very
find it.
similar, like the color scale, the color grading, and like I guess grayscale, right? It's like black and white also. So I thought that was also a Gustav. So I was like, that's strange why we're not talking about that one. But if it's not him, then I guess
I
it makes sense.
couldn't find it. I was really like digging through his archive. We'll get to later where to find like all his pieces.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, and reverse Google search, talk to Isis. Like, I have no idea.
Okay.
But yeah, but I had started rereading Dante's Divine Comedy recently, and I was really captured by some of the illustrations, including the portrait that was used for Dante Alighieri on the cover, and thought the artwork looked very similar.
So the portrait on the cover of the Divine Comedy, I put it here. Is that the one you're talking about? Because I was trying to just get some context with like what it looked like with what we were talking about.
Right. This was not the one I was thinking, though I did add the one below.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And dude
Oh.
is mean mugging. He needs to loosen those frown lines.
He's scary.
He's a little scary. Yeah, rereading this book, I didn't realize how short, because it's like little chapters, like little cantos they're called, but it's so very, we're almost done with the Inferno part, but my husband and I are reading it together
Really?
because every night I'm like, hey, can you read to me? And he never
Aw.
wants to read to me. So I was like, let's read something together. And he was like, well, pick something. I was like, let's read the Divine Comedy. He was like, okay.
Wait, do you guys just sit there and read back and forth to each other?
No, I would love that. He puts it on our TV. And some of you might know that there are different translations. I have one on my Kindle that I follow along with, and the one playing the audio on the TV has different words. So
Yeah.
I'm listening and reading at the same time, but it's helpful because
Yeah.
translations use different words for stuff.
Right.
And we'll pause every now and then. I'm like, that's not what this says. Like, that's not what I'm getting. So that's what we've been doing together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cute. Your husband likes to read.
Oh, he loves reading.
Avi, I was trying to like just pull his leg to watch Twin Peaks, and he was like, "This is weird."
I'm so stoked you're watching that.
But I must say, after like the third episode, he was like, "Are we watching Twin Peaks tonight?"
He's hooked.
He was asking to watch Twin Peaks, and we were decorating the tree. He's like, "I just want to watch Twin Peaks."
Oh
I was
my
like,
God.
"You are hooked. You're hooked."
You know what? I think Aaron and I watched that around Christmas time the first time also. I really think, what is the lady's name when he's recording? What is his Carol?
Diane.
Diane. Okay.
Diane. And I was like, "Who the hell is Diane?" And like, yeah, we're like, is like she his
boss?
wife? Is she his boss? And I've been listening to a podcast, not to get too off topic, but called Talking Backwards.
Mhm.
And basically it's three guys. One has seen every single episode. One had never seen it before and just started watching it to do the podcast. And then the other guy, I forget what his situation was, but they do a commentary about each episode if you have never watched it before, listen to each episode as you watch each episode.
Oh
So
my
you
God.
commentary about the episode you just watched. And
Cool.
there's no spoilers that way if like you've never seen it before. Yeah, and they have to keep things spoiler free because the guy that they're doing the podcast with had never seen it either. So they
Oh,
have to keep it spoil free for him. So I've been listening to the commentary as I'm watching each episode, and they also are like, "Who the fuck is Diane?" Who's Diane? If you love Twin Peaks, listen to this podcast. It's so funny. These guys are hysterical.
I'm so glad you're watching it. That's such a good show. And let me know if you do get into like the second season. I don't think we ever finished it because we were just like, what
No.
the fuck is happening?
What the fuck? Wrapped in plastic.
There's a fish in the percolator.
Fish in the
That fucking guy.
Pete. Good old
Pete.
Pete.
Yeah, you'll have to remind me of all the names. I don't
Yeah,
remember. But wait, what did you tell me? Who is in this show, apparently?
Oh, Billy fucking Zane. But he's not in season 1. I just finished season 1. He's not in season 1. I just found this out because I was looking at IMDb the other day because Avi was like, "Have you seen what these actors look like lately? A lot of them don't even look the same." So I was looking through the IMDb page and I'm scrolling down and I'm like, Billy Zane's on this page. He must be in season 2 because I haven't come across him yet. But what the fuck?
Let me know.
How's this guy in everything?
I don't remember him at all.
Oh my God.
How's this guy in everything?
I just don't understand. He's like Santa Claus. He's everywhere in all places all the time. Anyway,
Oh yeah, did you say he's a time jumper?
he's a time jumper. Which Twin Peaks apparently has this thing about time travel.
Oh my God.
So
We were
what the
on
fuck?
point.
All right, we need to do. Okay, we're gonna do a whole
Side.
separate episode, a Twin Peaks deep dive,
Oh,
and
I'm down.
maybe we can connect it with practical magic somehow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gustav.
Gustav.
Here we go.
Sorry,
Okay.
guys.
So I was talking about the Dante Alighieri portraits, and they were so familiar because the artist behind these works is none other than Gustave Dore, who also did the dark and haunting illustrations that were included in the Owens Family Grimoire in the film.
Wow.
So I included in here 2 photos. The first picture was colorized of Gustave when he was younger, and like I'm not gonna. He's kind of handsome for the time. He's got some big old mutton chops, which I can appreciate. A full head of hair.
He does have big mutton chops.
Hello, Gustav.
Huge.
So we'll include it in our notes. Join our Patreon. You can see all the pictures. I think this is going to be our visual episode for the month because there's so many images that go along with this one.
Yeah.
But the picture that Justina and I are looking at was a photo taken of Gustave at the age of 27 by his friend Nadar in 1859. Both Dore and Nadar were making their livings as cartoonists at the time, which who does that today? They were living the La Vie Boheme dream.
That's crazy. 1859, and they were drawing cartoons.
And we are going to find out just how rich those cartoons made this man.
That's crazy because cartoons, like, I don't think of cartoons being a thing until like the 1950s, like when was it or 40s when Mickey Mouse came out. Like I thought that was like the pioneer of cartooning. I guess fucking not.
Well, I'm thinking because the written word was so much more in everybody's lives, in the newspapers and like Reader's Digests and stuff. They had to have visuals to go along with those. It looks like they had photography at the time, but maybe hiring an artist was just cheaper.
Okay, so maybe like comic strips type cartoons, not animated, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so maybe Mickey Mouse was the pioneer of the animation world.
Yes, not animated.
Not animated. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. My mind went right to animation when I think of cartoons, but okay, good point.
And then we have another picture from 1870 of this man, and he is legit lounging with his arm over his head, his paintbrushes in hand. It's black and white. And he's just like feeling himself in this photo.
Yeah. He kind of looks a little like Edgar Allan Poe.
He does. The mustache.
Yeah, it is the mustache. I think I have a picture like this.
Of Edgar Allan Poe posing?
No, of me lounging like that.
With the mustache on?
With the no, there's no mustache, but I think I do have a picture like just like lounging like that.
But you were Edgar Allan Poe for Halloween, right?
I was.
I should been hilarious.
I should recreate this photo in my Edgar Allan Poe getup.
So Gustave also is behind one of my favorite works. He also did one for Milton's Paradise Lost of Lucifer being cast out of heaven. And as you may know, we went in depth about Satan, Lucifer, Beelzebub in our WMSR number 5, which was Jimmy's Beelzebub Bash, and discussed the origins of these archetypes and how their names got tangled up with each other. We also shared a Persian tale about the casting out of Lucifer for being the greatest lover of God. So I highly recommend. I think I recommend this again later on, but go check out that WMSR episode. It was really fun to do. Good music.
So Lucifer was a god Stan. Is that what the kids call them nowadays?
Yeah,
Stan?
he was Stan.
He was standing for God.
Did you see the guy who actually is Stan, Eminem Stan?
Devin Sawa, right?
I did not know that.
What?
The guy who played Casper?
Casper and Final Destination and Idle Hands.
Unbelievable.
He was the 90s it boy.
Yes.
You not?
Blowing my mind.
Yeah. This illustration, by the way, is gorgeous.
I want this painted on my wall. It's so beautiful.
But it kind of reminds me of what is it called? Sonogram, when you see the baby. Is that what it's called?
High contrast, black and white.
Yeah,
it looks like a sonogram. Yeah,
it looks like a uterus. This picture, kind of a little bit, doesn't it? Like it looks like there's like a baby in there.
Baby Satan.
Baby Satan. It just looks like, one of those pictures you see of like when somebody's like, oh,
Here's my baby.
there's my baby. I don't know. Kristina's dying over there.
Dying. This is really good for after what I did the hour before this. Just fucking crying.
Oh, well, I'm glad to make you laugh today.
Thank you. You always do. You always do. So there are actually a few free books about Gustave, and one of them is called The Life of Gustave Dore by Gerald Blanchard. That I did start, but I don't get paid enough to do this, and it was about 500 pages. And I do love this job. I love researching, but I had already tackled a large book for our nautical folklore, so I didn't end up reading this one.
I was gonna say, I have a feeling you would have tackled that even if we didn't have a podcast, because you're a nautical horror like that. You live for that. You live for that shit. So
It looked very good. Apparently he was just like the guy to talk to about Gustave. But I did, however, read Millicent Rose's 1946 publication titled Dore, which was only about 100 pages, and I'll be referencing that later on. That touches on Gustave's character and his personality quite a bit, and I really enjoyed this book. It is free to download in a PDF form. The link will be here in our show notes. But this book featured more of Gustave's like illustrations, and they were more free, and they were loose and raw. They were like his drafts, his sketches. Let me know what you think. I did put a few on the side, Justina. I love seeing an artist's like back catalog, the half finished things, like the mess ups, the quote ugly art. And I'm not saying that any of these images from this book are ugly in any way, but it's really cool to see the development, the quick idea just to get it out. Like with your music sometimes, right? You just got to get it out even if it's not polished.
yes, it's like a scratch demo. Exactly.
Exactly.
I'm sure like these came from like a little pocket notebook he carried probably in his pocket just to get ideas down, because they do look very loosely, kind of like in art school we call them gestures. Like you have like a minute to get like a figure drawing down.
Yes.
And like it's
time's up. Do the next one.
yeah, you're not supposed to spend that time trying to do a finished piece or refine anything. You're just trying to get the basic concept down and like what you want it to look like. And then later on, you can transfer the image to a canvas, refine your lines, fine tune everything, make everything more detailed. And like, it's a whole process. So it's just like songwriting. You're right. So these illustrations kind of remind me of, have you ever seen John Lennon's illustrations?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Simple line drawings. They look very juvenile. I'm not in a bad way, but like whimsical and fun. Like they have like a little bit of whimsy to them.
Yeah, I love how they're loose. It's not thought about too much. He was basically taking a snapshot of what he was seeing on the streets that he needed to remember later on when he put it into a finished piece. You're exactly right.
These are very cool. So you said, you said there was a whole book of these gestures?
This, some of these illustrations were taken out of Millicent Rose's publication titled Dore. There were a lot more interspliced that he submitted to newspapers and different publications.
Okay.
So that book was filled with them, and I do pull from that one a lot in what we're going to go over in his biography shortly. Yeah, this was awesome because it took me on a little side quest here. This Dore book led me to another interesting find, and I was reeled simply because of the book cover. And it was like below, I was like, what the fuck is that? It was blue and black, and it had this etching of a man clinging for his life to this rigging of a massive ship.
That is a badass image.
It's so cool.
That is very cool. It's also a little disturbing. I think a lot of his artwork is very disturbing.
It's very charged.
It's dark. It's dark.
Yes.
Yeah. And usually there's like a lot of elements. There's a lot of things going on in his etchings anyway, the ones from the movie anyway. And like your eye just like doesn't know where to look. There's a lot going on. And his work is so detailed.
So extra.
He must be a Sagittarius.
So this book was titled The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. And so of course I dove head first into this rabbit hole. I bought that book.
Did you?
And it's a poem, but come to find it has about 42 illustrations by Dore chronicling this maritime poem. And not just that, it credits Gustave as one of the authors. S.T. Coleridge is another author. Gustave is the illustrator, and Millicent Rose gives an introduction with some information about Gustave. So I bought this one. It is a very very interesting poem, and it has like a poem cadence, so it's very easy to read, but it's all about superstition at sea and the magic of like oral tradition, accompanied by Gustave's illustrations. But the introduction by Millicent Rose has a good bit about his early life.
I was just curious, was there anything worth noting about his early life that we're not going to get into? I guess we're going to talk about his biography more in depth in a minute, but like, was there anything that you can think of that is worth noting about his early life?
Yeah, we'll talk about it, but the thing that stood out to me was he was a little Norman Batesy.
Oh God, what? Wait, did he kill his mother and
No, no,
he taxidermy his mother?
He had a very close relationship with his mother. He started out very early, found success very early, had to take care of his family at a very early age. And I tried to color coordinate what I got from where, and I wrote a little apology to Justina. I was like, there's so many goddamn colors in these notes, but it's just so I cover my ass and like, hey, I got this from here. Don't come at me, right?
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So we'll have a couple different books we'll be referencing, as well as 2 featured articles on Gustave himself from the 1800s, and a look into the 3 engravings and illustrations that were featured in the Owens Grimoire in the Practical Magic film, as well as learn about the man himself, his magnitude of work, because this man was apparently a genius in his day. Which I think I was reading a little later on when I was reviewing your notes last night. Yeah, he was a genius in his day, but he also never achieved or attained the fame that he set out to during his lifetime. So he's kind of like another Van Gogh type of situation. I don't think Van Gogh sold one painting until after his death.
I think he had the success, he had the money, but it was never good enough for him. He was very prestigious and very wealthy. I have some math later, so don't run away.
Oh God, goodness gracious. All right. Apparently he was a genius, and the pieces that we'll be covering later on in the episode are titled The Great Flood, Don Quixote, The Figure in the Gown Stood Up, and The Visions of Ezekiel, The Vision of the Valley of the Dry Bones. And those are the 3 that are prominent in, well, not a couple of them aren't as prominent, but we see one main one in that grimoire in the film. But we're going to start with Gustave. What were his origins, and learn a little bit about his family and how it basically sounds like he was born with a paintbrush and art tools in his hand.
So his birthday is actually coming up. He's a Capricorn. Oh. Paul Gustave Louis Christopher Dore was born January 6, 1832. He was a French printmaker, illustrator, painter, comics artist, caricaturist, and sculptor. He is best known for his prolific output of word engravings, illustrating classic literature, especially those for the Vulgate Bible and Dante's Divine Comedies. These achieved great international success, and he became renowned for printmaking. Although his role was normally as the designer only, at the height of his career, some 40 block cutters were employed to cut his drawings into the wooden printing blocks, usually also signing the image. His style is classified as Romanticism and Symbolism. More informative, especially as regards an early life, is that published in 1885 by the American writer Blanche Roosevelt. This lady knew Dore during the last 15 years of his life. She was a guest at his evening parties and a naive adorer of his gifts. She made it her business to piece together all the gossip and memories she could gain from those who had known the family, from his friends, and the friends of his mother. The other biographer, Blanchard Giraud, who I mentioned earlier, was Dore's collaborator for the London volume and for several other works.
This Blanche Roosevelt chick, she's standing pretty hard. She collected all of the gossip and the memories and from the family and the friends and like this and that.
I don't know if I like any of my friends that much to collect all the gossip on them and write a book.
Right? Like, I guess in the 1800s, there's no fucking internet. What else do you do with your time? You got to make your own entertainment, which I guess she just like saw this guy and was like, he's really talented. I'm just gonna follow him around and collect his toilet paper and all the other remnants of his life.
It does sound like he had some banger parties, and I'm sure like later into his life when all that money was kind of flowing around, she was like, I'm gonna stick tight to this guy, because she was probably giving gifts, right? And showing a good time.
Yeah, but like from an artist's perspective, like it really does not fuel the fire, but it keeps the fire lit under your ass a little bit when you have those people around you that believe that much in you and your art.
Like patrons?
Like patrons, exactly. So patrons of the arts, you guys are very important to the process.
Yes. Yeah, you keep us going.
Just remember that.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. The Dore family had once spelled their name Dorer, Dorer, but by the 19th century they had become French with their great-grandfather who fought for Napoleon. Gustave was born in Strasbourg on the 6th of January, 1832, and his drawings at the age of 5 far exceeded the artistic level of other children, and he began carving in stone at only the age of 12.
Wait a minute. Are you kidding me?
Isn't that
That
nuts?
is so, yeah, okay. At 12, he was carving stone. At 12, I was putting stones in people's mailboxes. What?
Mailbox bandit.
I'm the mailbox bandit.
Oh man. At age 15, Dore began his career working as a caricaturist for the French paper Le Journal Paris, the newspaper for laughs. There was no time for any formal artistic training. To make up for the lack of life classes, he studied the male nudes at the swimming baths, while the marbles and the old masters of the Louvre provided him with female models. From early childhood, the boy loved all that was ancient, quaint, and Gothic in his birthplace, and was enthralled by the pine forests and the strange legends and spectacular views of the Vosges.
I
Vosges?
feel like I would have gotten along really well with this guy.
He sounds pretty good. Later on, I think it mentions you either loved him or you hated him.
Okay.
Okay.
Was he a jerk?
We'll get there. I don't know.
His interests alone, I'm like, well, I love all that shit too. Like, we would have hung out.
He does sound like somebody I'd want to hang out with.
Right.
Yeah, you're not wrong. As a young child, Dore began to draw in the margins of school books or on any scrap of paper that came to hand. His mother and family servant, Francois, who helped bring him up, were dazzled by the cleverness of these drawings, revealing, as they did, the child's imagination and his power for catching a likeness. They were convinced that Gustave was a genius. The father was more practical than they, insisting that the boy should work hard at his lessons and prepare for some profession less precarious than that of an artist. These early works all show a strong tendency to caricature. The earliest influence upon Dore was that of Granville, whose caricatures were so widely known in France in the 1830s, neat, curious prints in which the people have the heads of fishes or birds or other animals. Jean-Ignace Isidore Girard called Gustave the first star of French caricature's great age. Gustave, too, is musical. It talks about him having 3 brothers, specifically Ernest, composing music. He played the violin and had a sweet child's voice, which became in due course a light tenor. It was he who was always the center of fun at school and at family parties. He was a brilliant gymnast, mimic, conjurer. He made caricature portraits and wrote and illustrated little comic books. All that he did was done with fantastic facility and speed.
Okay. This guy, I'm pretty sure I'm like the female version of him.
Are you him? Are you
He was
Gustave?
he was a gymnast. What?
And he played music?
And he played music, and he loves pine forests, and he's gothic as shit. And him reincarnated.
You know he's behind you rolling in his eyes.
Like this bitch. Get over yourself.
He spent hours upon hours observing the crowded streets of Paris and committing to memory the marbles of the Louvre and seeking among the prints and drawings of the Bibliothèque Nationale the masterpieces of the Renaissance engravings. With the vitality of youth, he lived for years 2 lives in the space of 1. Dore's first year in Paris was one of revolution. By early training and by later conviction, he was always conservative, anti-republican. 1848 did not arouse in him either the enthusiasm or the understanding which Daumier showed for the rise of the Second Republic. During the days of revolution, the young student was in the streets watching the demonstrations of the February crowds outside the Chamber of Deputies, the setting up and the manning of the July barricades. So was he part of the Les Mis?
Oh.
What year was that?
Yeah, I don't know. But
Oh, you hear the people
perhaps.
sing?
That was in France, right?
Yeah.
1848. Let's see. What year?
Manning the July barricades.
It says it beginning in 1815 and culminating in the 1832 June Rebellion in Paris. The novel follows the lives and interactions of Jean Valjean, something like that. Yeah. So 1815 between then and 1832. Is
So
that
this was after.
A little after,
There,
yeah.
I saw like a meme that like the French are always rioting. Always rioting. They had like a speed limit reduced by 10 miles an hour. They were burning down the speed traps.
Jesus. They
Go
are
France! Vive
hard-
la France!
They're hardcore.
For him, it was all a spectacle, another Gutenberg fete, less gorgeous, more disturbing. He used to say afterwards that the scenes of 1848 were the greatest value to him for the understanding and management of the crowds in the compositions. After his father's sudden passing in May 1849, he was not yet 50 years old. Gustave became the family's breadwinner at the age of 17. The situation of the bereaved family is shown in a letter written to the Minister of Works by 3 young engineers who had been Monsieur Dore's assistants. Of the sons, the 19-year-old Ernest was still an unqualified student of engineering, the youngest, Emile, a schoolboy not quite 15. Gustave was already earning and showing extraordinary gifts as an artist, but was hardly old enough at 17 to undertake the chief support of his family. Their sole income, apart from Gustave's earnings, was 1,000 francs a year from a property owned by Madame Dore. All right, I'm going to try to make this very quick. Here's where the math comes in. I wanted to know how much this was back then, 1,000 francs. I went down the rabbit hole. I found a blog kind of having the converting mapped out, but I was like, I don't know how to fucking do this. So I asked ChatGPT. I said, how much was 1,000 francs in 1849? And ChatGPT gave me this kind of answer about inflation and yada, yada, yada. I said, use this to help you convert. Take this and use these steps, because the guy said he has percentages, he has the weight of gold. I said, use this. And you know what? Fucking ChatGPT did use the fuck out of it, and it converted for me. And it says, so based on the calculations, the equivalent value of 1,000 francs in 1849, adjusted for inflation and converted to present day dollars, is approximately $25,223.42.
That's how much he made a year?
That's how much they were bringing in a year, not including his earnings, apart from Gustave's earnings, yes. So then I was like, well, what was like the average earning in that time? ChatGPT, and again, for the win. So I had him do the same thing, and I had to go to another blog, kind of figure out, actually, this was a PDF I found about like the labor wages at the time, written in the 1800s. And apparently they weren't upper middle class, I think, because $21,120 was the average amount somebody at the time was bringing in. So they had a little bit more coming in. But just take a look at that equation. I could never in my life have figured that out. But I love this podcast, and I needed to know these dollar bills, yo.
Dollar bills, though.
Yeah. So Madame Dore inherited a house in Paris, and at the housewarming, elated by his new position as master of the house, Gustave performed such antics as standing on his head in the middle of the dining room table. And then he managed to bring down with a kick of his heel the chandelier that was lighting the room. The house-proud mother made an angry scene, and it was only with difficulty that the guest persuaded her that the broken glass was lucky when one moved into a new home. But in general, life was comfortable and happy in the Rue Saint-Dominique.
I feel like this guy would be doing keg stands. Like, this guy sounds...
Is he a Chad?
He's cray.
Yeah. So he could not bear to turn down a commission, probably because they needed the money to be coming in. The demand for his work became enormous, and while he began in his early 20s the illustrations to the classics for which he will always be remembered, he did not disdain ephemeral journalism or the illustrations of the novels by Paul de Kock. So I guess this was another French novelist at the time, although he acquired a literary reputation for, and I linked this, somebody called him, this Paul de Kock, lowbrow output and poor taste.
What? What does that mean?
Like he was like a shit artist or a shit journalist.
Well, fuck that guy. What's he doing with his life?
He did. All right.
The Empress Eugenie herself admired his work and received him. His friends included the aging Rossini, with whom he made music, Dumas' father and son, the photographer Nadar, and many other artists and writers. Théophile Gautier was a French poet, dramatist, novelist, journalist, and art and literary critic who was about 21 years older than Gustave. They loved him and called him Le Gamin de Génie, the genius kid. I don't know fucking French, so I hope I said
beautiful.
That right. At 19, Gustave fell in love with a young girl and asked her father for her hand. The proposal was refused on the grounds of the suitor's small income and uncertain prospects. This refusal must have strengthened the bonds between the artist and his mother. His later life was not without its passionate incidents, which included an ardent courtship of the actress Alice Ozy, noted for her many lovers. But none of these affairs ever reached a strength of reciprocated desires sufficient to wean him from the warm certainty of affection that was in the house of his mother. Exactly, Norman fucking Bates. You are absolutely right about that. And I'm thinking like maybe the trauma of like being rejected by all these women made him kind of
I don't
be
know.
more adherent to his mother's side.
What is that the name for it? Like
Oedipus complex?
Mm,
Oedipus complex.
yeah, that's the name, but it's because his father passed away so early in his life, he became the man of the house. And it's like some kind of like side incest. That's not the right name, but basically where the son or the daughter stand in as one of the parents because the other parent isn't there. And emotionally, they give the support to the parent. You know, they bounce the ideas off. They're the confidant. I don't know where the brothers were at this time, if they were still living at home. But he was comfy cozy with his mama.
He was comfy cozy. So I'm wondering if it's maybe the other way around, or maybe all of his relationships failed because they couldn't live up to the standard of his mother.
That could be it.
There's many relationships that fail because mom is a little overbearing.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I don't know if we know too much about mama.
All right. So though his biographer and friend of later years, Blanche Roosevelt, this is her full name, Mrs. Blanche Roosevelt Tucker Machetta. Is she Italian? So she actually, I guess when she did a biography about this guy, she hints at an affair with an actress, which we just talked about. He courted actress Alice Ozy, and it says that he made one or two attempts to take a wife, but he remained a bachelor to the end of his life. His canvases were hung and were seen and then came back to grow dusty in his studio. His work did not even achieve the left-handed distinction of being rejected. Critics and public remained unimpressed. As a draughtsman, they were ready to accept him, but not as a painter. In spite of the neglect of the critics, Gustave continued to paint. His desire for fame was stronger than his despondency at the sight of the growing stacks of canvases in his studio. In the 1850s, Dore had almost the monopoly of illustration in Paris. At the beginning of his career, he had worked largely in lithograph, drawing upon the stone himself. But in the years of greatest fame, nearly all his work was engraved on wood. He used to draw the designs directly upon the blocks, working on several at once and going from one to the other with small rapid touches until all were finished.
Did you think he had ADD?
So he's a multitasker.
Yeah.
I'm definitely him. Yeah. The boxwood was then cut by other hands. As we were saying, he collaborated on a lot of his work. As a youth, he was always very disappointed by what Philippon's engravers made of his drawings, his Philippon being his employer. This was also touched on in Dore by Millicent Rose, and she adds, Gustave said fretfully that they had no respect for him because he was young and small. Within a few years, he had made the best of a difficult situation, and in due course, he began to work closely with a team of young craftsmen who learned to interpret him more faithfully. They became his friends and served him throughout his career. Their signatures, Paisan, Panamaker, Jannard, and others, may be recognized in his work with Milton and Dante, and are still present years later in The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which was the book that you were just telling us about, right?
Yeah, it's cool that it showed up here.
Yeah. Yeah. So he tried in so far as possible to spend only the mornings on the wood blocks, which were his living, and to work in the afternoons at another studio where he painted in oils or watercolor. It was his lifelong ambition to become one of the great French painters. Henri Sehefer's brother Henry gave him a start while Gustave was still in his teens with the technique of painting in oils, but he was largely self-taught. He painted without discipline and at tremendous speed, often on a very large scale. The results were feebly constructed, muddy in color, and sentimental.
So he was rushing. He just wanted the quantity, not quality.
Right. So it seemed like he was really good at blocking, right? Like how we were talking, like doing those gesture paintings, really quick sketches. Maybe he painted the same way he'd sketched in his sketchbook, and maybe he never actually refined his paintings. But I think it's so fascinating how, like, as an artist, when you choose your medium, or maybe you don't choose your medium chooses you,
Yeah.
basically. Like you
Yeah.
can be really great at etching and do it so detailed and so beautifully, but then your paintings are shit.
Mm.
Like it's crazy to me how your hand can translate on one medium, but maybe not so well in another medium, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just so fascinating to me how the brain works and
Yes.
hand and coordination, like with your hand.
Well, not
And
even that, just knowing your skills and the fact that he like pulled together a team that could do what he could not was like me looking for you with this music.
right, like you need to know your strengths, but you also need to know your weaknesses. Like
Mhm.
you need to know when it's time to outsource. And
Mhm.
he, I guess, was he a good businessman? I don't know. Do we get into like his business aspect?
A little
Yeah.
bit about his relationship with money later on.
Okay. Okay. It seems like he like knew he was aware of his weaknesses and he knew that, he had to outsource the things that he wasn't so good at or didn't have the time for or didn't want
Right.
to
It sounds like
spend
he
the
didn't have the time. He was too busy getting the next idea out of his
right.
brain.
Yeah. So already well known, Gustav became triumphantly famous. At 22, with the publication in 1854 of his rebellious collaboration on Gargantua and Pantagruel, which tells the adventures of two giants, Gargantua and his son Pantagruel, which earned him the accolade of, quote, one of the most prolific and most successful book illustrators of the 19th century. From this time, he was able to stop his cartooning for Philip, which he began to regard as degrading journalism, and turned to the nobler task of illustrating the classics of literature. It seemed like after a while he was like really sick of the cartoon thing. It seemed like he only did that to kind of make a living and, put food on the table, pay his
Mhm.
bills, keep
Yeah.
mom happy or keep dad happy, right? He was the one who was saying that he needed to find a substantial means of income. Like, don't rely on this art shit. And maybe he just like kind of like did the cartooning thing to prove to his dad, like, look, I can make money being an
Yeah,
artist.
prove daddy wrong.
No, he
Totally.
didn't really enjoy the cartooning thing. Like his passions obviously lied elsewhere in the art world.
It sounds like he also might have had a little cushion. They might not have been too worried with him quitting that job, the cartoonist job, and taking the time to illustrate these classic pieces of literature. Because
Uh-huh.
I don't know, how do you get a commission like that? Did he draw them and present them, or did they come to him, say, hey, we're going to do a new publication for this coming year, we want new drawings? I don't know how it works. Maybe he had a little bit of time, a little bit of extra cushion financially to have that done, but it sounds just like this Gargantua and his son was the catalyst for him being seen as a proper illustrator.
Right. And at that point, he had probably been illustrating for this company for so long, the cartoons and stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
He had honed his skills and his craft, and now what's the phrase? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. He saw an opportunity maybe, and he was prepared for the job, and then he took it and ran with it,
Yeah.
and he didn't have to do those stupid cartoons anymore.
It says he's only 22, but when did he start working for, I think it's like
Did
Filippo?
it say 17? Didn't he start working when he
17?
was 17?
Okay. Okay. So he wasn't there super long, but that's still long
Yeah.
enough.
So, he declared to his mother that he meant to illustrate every one of the European classics, and he succeeded to a considerate extent in doing so. The Inferno appeared in 1861 to be followed by Purgatoria and Paradiso 7 years later. The Inferno was his own favorite among all his illustrations. The work on it had been hard and undertaken with great thoroughness. It had occupied his thoughts for several years, and though not published till 1861, was already begun in 1857. So things take time, right?
Yeah.
How many years have our songs been occupying our minds already, and we even haven't even scratched the surface.
Exactly. But to think how fast the turnaround we were just talking about, we started writing and not even a year had passed
Yeah.
where we were able to record. Like
Yeah.
nowadays, it's just boom, 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 boom. But back then, it took a little longer for things to get rolling.
Yeah, so the beauty of the poem excited his warmest feelings. He did not know Italian, but worked from a text where the original stood opposite a French translation in prose. Profoundly impressed by the experience of working on this theme, he repeatedly copied his Inferno designs in oil and watercolor.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I wonder if the watercolors were as revered as the
Hmm.
etchings in Inferno.
I'd be interested to see a watercolor by him because I don't think I maybe wasn't paying attention, but most of the stuff were the black and white illustrations that
Okay.
kept popping up.
Right.
I ended up on an auctioneer, like an art auction website, and you can still buy like original Dore pictures.
Wow.
Not the most famous ones, of course, but for
Yeah.
like $400. I'm like,
Oh,
you looking pretty good right now, Dore.
yeah. I'm surprised I don't go for more. Like, that's crazy.
I think that was the starting price. I don't know when or how long bidding goes.
All right. So those auctions can go much higher than that.
Yeah.
So in 1861 came Perrault's fairy tales, followed by Munchausen, 1862, Don Quixote, 1863, 1866 Bible illustrations, which we'll be talking about today, as well as the first of several poems by Tennyson in 1867, The Fables of La Fontaine, which you said they look like children's books, and an edition for an English firm of Paradise Lost.
He was fucking busy.
He was fucking busy. So it seemed like that one thing that he did kind of like everything snowballed from there, and he was getting work regularly, it seems. It was awesome. Gustave Dore had a personality which his friends and acquaintances found violently attractive or repellent. I guess you loved him or you hated him, like you said before. Like, you were either for him or you weren't. But there was one thing that did not happen to him. He was not overlooked. Dore was the close contemporary of Manet, Degas, Pissarro, but was unaware of the new vision being slowly developed by the Impressionists, nor could he or his mother have borne to live the obscure dedicated lives of the Pissarros.
Yeah, I'm guessing that word is being used, the artist name is being used like as an umbrella term for the Impressionists,
Got
their
it.
bohemian lifestyle.
Got it. Okay. So the English portraits of Dore are very different from the French ones. He was regarded in this country as a person of extraordinary gifts. When his English friend Canon Harford sent a photograph of himself to Dore's mother, he inscribed it, quote, "To the lady who had the honor of bringing into the world the greatest genius of the 19th century." End quote. Your parentheses, all right, damn, Michael Nyman. All right, so Canon Harford is the David McAlmont to Dore's Michael Nyman. Got it. Oh man. So the interpretation of Dante, Milton, and the Bible, published in enormous editions in many different languages, to some extent consoled him for his lack of recognition as a painter. During the last 10 years of his life, he made many designs for an edition of Shakespeare, which was never completed. The Third Empire, marked by Gustave Dore's prolific creative period, embraced the Romantic style as an established norm. Dore, though enjoying success, found the joys of the time bittersweet due to life's uncertainties, jealousy, competition, and pervasive misery. Oh, geez. He sounds very existential.
He is, for sure.
His artistic escape into a fantasy world served as a refugee for his audience. Edmond de Goncourt, sharing a similar penchant for escapism, praised Dore's belief that illustration becomes compelling when working with the great figures of the past. By illustrating classics, Dore transcended the struggles for recognition, immersing himself in the company of indisputably great men from delightfully remote times. Dore's disdain for contemporary life, akin to Flaubert's disgust of modern life, was heightened by the atmosphere at home. Despite experiencing wealth, fame, and admiration, Dore remained emotionally immature, influenced by the antipathy to his own age. His emotional development was stunted, and his actions, such as charitable gestures, reflected an innocence of social complexities. In all Dore's work as an illustrator, there is hardly one intimate scene of home. He sometimes drew an interior in the course of his work, but the everyday intimacy of family life is entirely absent from his work. So far as his people enjoy home life at all, they do it sitting romantically in the hard window seat of a castle. His London is a portrait of a city without a single domestic scene. Instead, we have wild glades, mountain chasms, vast droughtly castles, cobwebby dens, picnics of simple peasants round a fire. His style, so redolent of the mid-19th century, was not based upon any scientific theory about the problem of presenting reality by two-dimensional art. He was an eclectic, one who took from the past whatever suited him. His work is full of quotations from Michelangelo, Raphael, Rembrandt, Blake, John Martin, with many other artists equally diverse. In the finished style of his London, the drawing varies from the heaviest Michelangelo to the frothiest Guise. The lighting is now Rembrandt, now Watteau. Yet out of his eclecticism, an integrated style emerges, born of the artist's exuberance and the energy of his imagination.
And I just wanted to note that it seemed like a lot of his caricatures and the satirical depictions of London at this time. So he went from Paris to London and he eventually goes back. He wanted to be like mingling, like he wanted to be of the people. So he did a lot of illustrations of like the dock workers and picket lines and warehouses, brawls in the streets. He was capturing real street life of London.
Okay. So in other scenes, and notably in the vignettes, Dore does show individual poor Londoners with considerable degree of sympathy, but always what is weak in them, pitiable or laughable. The vigorous unrest of the audience at the Penny Theatre appalls him, but he can feel for the lemonade seller, clad like the majority of working-class Londoners in a scarecrow caricature of middle-class dress, tall hat, long overcoat, for the thin, sickly woman who gulps a dish of jellied eels. It was in fact not possible for Dore the playboy to make his portrait of London complete. The intimacy of its family life, whether in Belgravia, Clapham, or Wapping, eluded him completely. In 1861, he was named Chevalier de la Légion d'honneur, the highest French Order of Merit awarded by the government. A British publisher requested new illustrations for the Bible. These were released in 1866 and became widely popular. The next year, he was featured in a major solo exhibition in London. Dore was celebrated for his paintings too, but his woodcuts and engravings drew the most attention and recognition. When he did paint, he primarily used oil paints on canvas.
Was acrylic a thing at the time?
I don't know, because acrylics is like made of plastic, so
I guess
that's more that's like, I guess, a more modern invention.
In 1867, Dore at last managed to secure a long critique in the exclusive pages of the Gazette des Beaux-Arts. This year, his chief salon picture was The Green Table, or Gambling at the Baden-Baden. It was 17 feet high by 34 feet wide, showing a great number of life-size figures. The following is a quote from the Gazette des Beaux-Arts by Paul Mans. As it happens to us already on more than one occasion, that having to give an account of their yearly exhibitions, we have abstained from speaking of the pictures of Monsieur Dore. A vague presentiment told us that the fertile draughtsman, who illustrates in the same style Dante, Don Quixote, the Bible, and La Fontaine, might appear full of verve and ardor, but that he is no painter. The Green Table is a sad confirmation of our fears. It is not that we object to the theme. Coming away from the opera, Chantilly races, the lake of the Bois de Boulogne, his sermon at Notre Dame, and the boardwalk of the Tuileries, the world, in fact, and even the other world, are all fit subjects for painting, and we believe, amid this century which believes in so little, in nonchalant beauties half lying in the carriages, in the rustling of silk dresses, in the little feet cunningly shod, and proudly piled up hair, and infinitesimal hats, these things are not heroic, but they are charming, and they arc life. To express these forms and colors, this happy luxury of this wretchedness, a painter needs, with a little irony, the free elegance of faultless drawing, a feeling of light colors, a profound understanding of types, a penetrating vision which allows him to know or to guess everything, and finally, he must be serious enough to be able to be light. So, in this opinion of the critic, Gustave Dore was no such artist.
Savage.
Savage!
His name must be Fred, because he's savage as Fred.
He's a little Tom Petty.
A little bit, yeah.
To be unnoticed or abused by all the academic critics was a fate Dore shared with most of his great contemporaries. Manet tallied exactly with Dore in the years of his birth and death. Vassario was 2 years older, Degas 2 years younger. Unlike the Impressionists, Dore had neither principal nor comrades to comfort him. I'm still like reading in that accent. The attack by Muntz was painful to him, not because a scientific theory had failed to find supporters, but because an anticipated personal triumph had turned to shame. Such a defeat may evoke less sympathy than the gallant struggles of a new school, but it was extremely hard to bear. I tried looking up this painting, this Green Table, and it seems that it has been turned into like a theater play. That's the first thing that comes up.
Okay.
But I found it by its French name, Le Tapis Vert, I guess. I just wanted to see what all the fuss was about, and I spent way too long. This is how I ended up on the auction sites. I was looking for
You
this
went-
fucking painting.
You went down the rabbit hole.
I can't believe 17, what did it say? 17 by 34 feet?
Yeah, that's huge.
Massive. Massive.
Yeah.
All right. However, the critique was outweighed by the positive praise we've already heard, plus the following. The art journal hailed him. The imagination of Dore is unapproachable. Not even our own Martin could have come near to it. The leading genius of the age. The Daily Telegraph found him more fecund, more inspired, and above all, a finer colorist than all the palettes united who canvass the walls of galleries and showrooms and fight for the prize of Rome. While Lloyd's News declared, we have always insisted, judging with an intimate knowledge, that Dore was an art presence infinitely higher than the world had yet estimated. Our justification is now in this country. And this next part describes Gustave's studio at the Rue Saint-Dominique. It says, and this was from, I think, from Blanche Roosevelt.
This is the lady that did his autobiography.
I believe so, yeah. So it says that the studio wore the familiar aspect of a drawing room. It contained a pianoforte and other instruments, piles of music, books, comfortable sofa and armchairs, card table and coffee table, musical boxes, statues, statuettes, plaster casts, and bronze medallions. Watercolors, enormous paintings, photographs of Dore's work, chiefly of those which had been sold to foreign countries, and any number of curious objects. So he's a maximalist.
I'm pretty sure he's like collecting like shrunken heads and like, mummy. Like what do we talk about in the Victorians episode? A mummy revealing party.
Yeah,
Remember those?
unwrapping. Yeah.
How I am sure this guy held many a mummy unwrapping unboxing. He's done many a mummy unboxing.
Oh my god, unboxing.
Yeah.
They go on to say the works of art were all by Dore. Everything of that class was from his own hand. So Madame Alexandrine Dore.
Oh, that's his mother.
Oh, that's his mom. All right, Mama Dore rejoiced
Mama Dore.
in the fame of her son and took an extremely active interest in his career. I'm sure she did. The young man cared far more for fame than for money. He spent his earnings lavishly in helping the family of an injured worker, in bringing presents to an orphanage, in entertaining his friends' friends. The mother liked fame well enough, but she cared very much indeed for money. She watched over her son's affairs with the narrow shrewdness of the provincial bourgeoisie. The number of Dore's drawings is estimated at 10,000 drawings. That's a lot of fucking drawings.
Yeah.
But I heard that Bob Ross is estimated had done at least 30,000 paintings in his time.
Well, I mean, how many seasons of his show were there? Like,
Right.
like that's crazy.
And this is according to Blanche Roosevelt. The earnings for the 20 years 1850 to 1870 amounted to nearly 7 million francs. She revealed Monsieur as the richest artist in France. So I'm not sure if that 7 million francs is from the 1800s money, but that's still a shit ton of money. So I went back to ChatGPT to help me do some math.
GPT.
And ChatGPT. So if they're talking 7 million francs today,
Yeah.
that's still $8,081,843. But
Wow.
that's over a 20-year span. So he's a millionaire, apparently.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if that's 1800, that 7 million francs is today's money or 1800s money. Either way, that's a ton of money.
He is well off. Mama Dore is happy as shit. She's
Mama Dore!
happy as a pig in shit.
His friend the painter Brodelin describes to Blanche Roosevelt his method of working. I have seen Gustave earn 10,000 francs, which is like 400 pounds, in a single morning.
That's crazy.
Oh, insane. He would have from 15 to 20 blocks before him and would pass from one to another with a rapidity and sureness of touch that were amazing. He rarely finished any drawing at a single sitting, but kept a continual hither and thither, backwards and forwards between them. One morning he made no fewer than 21 splendid designs, finishing the last on the stroke of 12.
Oh, he totally had ADD, for sure.
Yeah. He then thrust his pencil from him with a laugh, threw back his head with that peculiar gesture which always sent his hair waving with it, and said to me gaily, "Not a bad morning's work, my friend. Here are enough banknotes to keep a whole family for a year. Do you think I have earned the right to a good breakfast? Upon my word, I am hungry enough at any rate. Shall we go?"
This is a damn fine cup of coffee.
Little apple pie to go
Little
with.
apple pie. What's that one? Do you remember the scene where he's like that dude, Harry, what's his fucking name? The cop, the cop that he's like on
Hmm.
this like investigation with.
Hmm.
What's his fucking name? Truman, Harry Truman. They go to a diner and like the waitress asks Harry if he wants a cup of coffee and he's like, "Nah, we don't have time for that. We got to, figure this shit out." And then Cooper, he's like,
Shit out.
yeah, he's like, well, he didn't say it like that, but he was like, "No, we don't have time for coffee." And Cooper, the detective, he's like, "Give yourself one gift once a day. Give yourself a little gift." And coffee is that gift or something like that. But like he's all about his coffee.
Damn.
So funny.
I want to look up. So 400 pounds. Oh,
Yeah.
but is that back then?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
So, the young man cared far more for fame than for money. He spent his earnings lavishly in helping the family of an injured worker, in bringing presents to an orphanage, in entertaining his friends and his friends' friends. So, I mean, he didn't, yeah, I mean, he spent lavishly, but it seemed like he also did a lot of good for his community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Money wasn't what he was after.
right. He just wanted I guess, the accolades he wanted to be known for being the artist that he was, right?
Right.
I feel like his mom like was more into the money than he was, maybe.
Sure. Mm.
So it says the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner is one of these last years and was published in 1875. Dore had a special feeling for the poem and, in contrast to his usual practice, completed the designs before he made arrangements for publication.
Oh, okay. So he did do the designs before anything was published. Okay.
Okay. He spent lavishly on the blocks, which were very large, and supervised the engraving with even more than his usual care. Dore's illustrations for the Bible in 1866 were a great success, and in 1867 Dore had a major exhibition of his work in London. This exhibition led to the foundation of the Dore Gallery in Bond Street, London. In 1869, Blanchard Gerald, the son of Douglas William Gerald, suggested that they work together to produce a comprehensive portrait of London. Gerald had obtained the idea from the Microcosm of London produced by Rudolph Ackerman, William Pine, and Thomas Rowlandson, published in 3 volumes from 1808 to 1810. Dore signed a 5-year contract with the publishers Grant & Co. that involved his staying in London for 3 months a year, and he received the vast sum of £10,000 a year for the project. Dore was celebrated for his paintings in his day, but his woodcuts and engravings, like those he did for Gerald, are where he excelled as an artist with an individual vision. Dore also illustrated an oversized edition of Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, an endeavor that earned him 30,000 francs from publisher Harper and Brothers. So he was an Edgar Allan Poe fan.
I think so. I think that's where
Alright.
his mustache came from.
Okay. We are the same person. So it seems that his gloom grew out of the fact that for Dore, London was only second best. He would rather 1,000 times have had his success at home. He disliked new customs, sights, and language. When he was invited by Napoleon III to make one of an imperial party, which was to visit Suez, he refused twice in a manner which was positively rude and was badly received by the emperor.
Can you
And-
imagine pissing off the Emperor of France?
Or just like declining their invitation.
The balls on this guy.
Right, yeah. And his reason, according to Arthur Kratz, was that he did not want to travel, to upset his vision with new sights and his constitution with new foods. To come to England was necessary for financial reasons, but at first he had not liked it at all.
It seems that his heart was always in France, to which he does return. He's going back and forth. He never truly loved England and barely bothered to learn more than a few English phrases. But the English loved him, and most of the people he socialized with knew French. But apparently, he fucking hated dinner parties.
You could have fooled me. Before it said he was like dancing on tables and like
But that was
swinging
at his house. He is you. He is you. If he doesn't have to go anywhere, awesome. Life of the party. If he's got to fucking show out, I don't want to have anything to do with it.
He's an extroverted introvert.
Yes.
Is he an INF? What was it? INFJT? We'll have to do a Myers-Briggs for him.
I don't feel like I know him well enough. I want to keep reading. I think that bigger book would be interesting. Do I have the time? Absolutely not. Absolutely.
Well, when you do, put it
Oh,
on the
shit,
list.
what if I know?
Put it on
I'm
the list.
curious if there are. I wanted to like watch YouTubes on him, see if there was any more information, but I didn't have the time. I really wanted to talk about him and what we had.
I'll go. There's a lot here. I don't think we needed to do any more for today. This is
Yeah.
great stuff.
So this says, in most of these households, his lack of English was a positive asset. The women knew French and, of course, liked speaking it. This was not an unmixed pleasure for Dore. I guess this is him saying it. I liked your garden fete, your garden parties, and evening receptions, he told the art journalist Amelia Edwards. But it is the dinner parties that kill me. Mon Dieu, how long they last and how stupid they are.
Yeah, that sounds like me. I'm like ready to go home after after the main course. I'm like, all right, let's get the check, wrap it up, let's go home.
The later years of Dore's life were increasingly melancholy. This was sad. The Franco-Prussian War was particularly sad for him, as the scenes of his Alsatian childhood were now lost to France. He stayed in Paris during the siege, making patriotic cartoons and busying himself on behalf of less influential and wealthy friends. A minor distress of the war was that 5 of his pet pugs were stolen and eaten.
What?
4 others survived.
All right, he was a dog man, so maybe we're not so much alike.
Oh, but he loved animals. Animals are animals.
Yeah, I know. But I'm a cat lady.
The Rime of the Ancient Mariner is of these last years and was published in 1875. Dore had a special feeling for the poem and, in contrast to his usual practice, completed the design before he made the arrangements for publication. He spent lavishly on blocks which were very large and supervised the engravings with even more than his usual care. Coleridge did not place the Ancient Mariner in any one period. The ballad forms suggest olden days, and the poem derived partly from the tales of the early explorers. Gigantic scale and limitless space had always fascinated Dore. He had played with them in his Rabelais and invoked the vastness of Dante's hell and Milton's chaos. I wanted to share this little section because I thought this was really cool. This can be found in part 2 of the Ancient Mariner. Day after day after day, we stuck nor breath nor motion, as idle as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. Water, water everywhere, and all the boards did shrink. Water, water everywhere, nor a drop to drink.
You wrote that?
This was written by Coleridge.
Coleridge.
But
Okay.
that water, water everywhere, not a drop to drink.
Not a drop to drink.
So such a most people know that saying, but this is
Yeah.
the book it comes from. I thought
That's
that was
crazy.
interesting. Though Dore himself considered The Ancient Mariner one of his best and most original works, its sales recouped him only slowly for a great initial outlay. Published first in England, in due course it began to be known, and editions appeared in France, Germany, and the United States. In his later years, Dore was preoccupied with religious paintings and with sculptures, especially a grand monument to his friend Alexandre Dumas. Dore never did achieve the fame which he strove for throughout his life, and which his friend Alexandre Dumas, the younger, prophesied by his grave would be after death. His mother died after a long illness of 2 years. He worked on and in the big house and still larger studio, cared for by old Francois and attended by his pet owls.
He had owls and pugs.
God dang, he's some gothic bitch. From all points of view, the 2 years between his mother's death and his own were very wretched. Edmond de Goncourt gives an intimate glimpse of him, as he was when she had been dead a year. On Thursday, March 16th, 1882, Goncourt records, "Yesterday, Dore came to sit with me in the drawing room of the princess and said without preamble, 'You'll see, we shall end up by marrying 2 old Englishwomen.' And when I said to him, 'Why does your celibacy oppress you?' he confessed to me that he found in himself the desire for continuity and survival through children, and almost at once he began to talk, with a certain terror in his face, of the legacy hunting that he felt creeping around him, of caressing, scheming in an Italian voice, and scheming of a coarse kind of man who placards his friendships for you by violent contradictions, and in a word, all the different kinds of scheming carried on with the diplomacies and the wiles of greed."
Do you understand what he's saying there?
So I'm thinking he wants to leave a legacy, but he doesn't want kids.
That sounds like me.
I know. Yeah.
Like of course I want to pass, everything that I've created down to someone, but I'm like, who am I gonna pass? My cats? I'm gonna pass it down to my cats? Like what?
Yeah. Gustave Dore died in January 1883 by a sudden stroke, was followed by a very short fatal illness. The artist was just 51.
That's young.
He was buried at Père Lachaise. As an officer of the Legion of Honor, he received full military honors, and at the funeral was attended by a very large and distinguished gathering. Speeches were made by Alexandre Dumas, the younger, and Paul Dalloz. He was buried next to his mother.
So it said there were 2 years between his mother's death and his death?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he died of a broken heart?
He might have died of a broken heart. Mommy's
He
gone.
was really close. He was mama's boy.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah. We don't know how long it was after Sally and Jillian's dad passed away that the mom died.
Right.
We don't know. We don't know how long it was between. He could have died of a broken heart. Very good theory. So the 2 biographies of Gustave Dore by his contemporaries are both in English, one by his friend Blanche Roosevelt and the other by Blanchard Gerald, the cosmopolitan English journalist who worked with him on the London A Pilgrimage. Gerald gives an entertaining and sympathetic portrait of Dore as he had known him in Paris and London. Blanche Roosevelt is more gushing, somewhat ingenuous in her admiration for Dore's genius, the splendor of his parties. I did find that in starting the first book. It was more structured. Her book was we're reading is like gossipy, isn't it? Like we talked about before, she was gathering all the goss.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He's spilling the tea.
Yeah. After the death of the artist, the gallery at 35 New Bond Street continued for many years to attract a lucrative number of visitors, and Christ leaving the Petrimum
Praetorium.
It's like a church, a praetorium.
But why is it spelled Prae? Right?
Old-timey writing. Okay, Christ,
Old-timey-
the praetorium, the entry into Jerusalem, Moses before Pharaoh, and the rest continued to take their place in one way or another, the mental makeup of many a late Victorian girl or boy. By 1901, after 35 years of life, the gallery was losing its popularity. The proprietors began to let off rooms for other purposes and exhibitions. And this is a quote, meeting of artists and other societies at homes and other gatherings where plenty of floor space and an attractive setting are desirable. That is just a summation. There are those 2 books, and we're going to get into some articles too, but I have a huge respect for this man, and just the vast quantity of his work that he created is just unreal. He did die on January 23rd, again, 1883. He was only 51. And earlier it said that he created 10,000 illustrations, which, Jesus Christ. But WikiArt has at least 760 of his pieces of work if you want to check them out. They are searchable by like filter, style, series, genre. It's just insane. His wealth, his work, his relationship with his mom, his friends, being on the in of Impressionism, but also skirting around the outside. He didn't want to be a part of it, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, he's an introverted or extroverted introvert.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I can't imagine creating that much work in my lifetime.
No.
But remember when I was telling you, what were we talking about? When I was telling you about the castle that I visited and the
Tiles?
the tile importer. I don't remember if I think he created some tiles there, but he also had a lot of stuff imported. And he collected like a lot of treasures from around the world, and he had them all in his castle. I did a whole Patreon post on this if you guys want to go check it out. And I forget what episode it was that we were talking about it, but we were talking about the term memento mori and remembering that you die and having the skull on the desk to remind you that like you only have so much time on this earth. If you want to create, you got to get all the stuff out while you're here, because
I don't know if he ever did a self-portrait besides the photography. He might have, but it just seemed like he, like a lot of artists, was just interested in capturing the life around him in the places that he loved. Yeah.
Well, it's good that he had those people around him to capture that for him, and like especially like people who were, you know, putting out those biographies or whatever, that he had so many patrons that supported him in that way, because it seemed like he didn't really care to document his own life. Like he liked illustrating other things like literature or other things.
And also, I'm wondering if he was on the outskirts of the Impressionists like Manet, Monet, Degas, because it sounds like he had money, and these other artists did not have money. I'm wondering if that was a factor.
I don't know
I don't know either.
Things we'll never know. But so I think we're going to take a quick break now, right? We're going to take our break. All right, so when we come back, we're going to deep dive into 3 Dore pieces that we see in the Owens Grimoire in the film Practical Magic and speculate on why we think the creators of the film decided to incorporate them into that grimoire. So all that and more, stick around. We will be right back. Hey, little witches! The Stinas here. If you've been listening to our podcast for a while, you would know how much we love using the Practical Magic Inner Witch Oracle deck by Grounded by the Moon.
And now we want to share the magic of Grounded by the Moon with you, our listeners. Joseph Benitez Egerton, the creator behind Grounded by the Moon, would like to offer this very special 10% off discount to all who wish to experience the magic of his Practical Magic themed tarot and oracle decks.
But that's not all. He also creates other divination tools like tarot workbooks, deck bags and altar cloths, pendulum kits, oil blends, cleansing sprays, smoke wands, teas, and ritual kits.
And let's not forget about his custom handcrafted, all-natural soy candles, where every candle is hand-poured and personally infused and charged under the light of the moon. They even come with a crystal.
And did we mention all of the ingredients in the candles are ethically sourced?
All of Joseph's offerings are just so magical. So go visit groundedbythemoon.com and use the coupon code Magnolia Magic for 10% off your entire order at checkout.
That's MAGNOLIA MAGIC. So get your discount today.
You're listening to the Magnolia Street Podcast. I'm back.
I'm back. All right, so we're going to do our card pull. Okay. All right. I'm going to shuffle up, I guess. Tell me when to stop.
Stop. Water element.
Water.
Interesting.
And the keyword on this card is emotions.
Oh, interesting.
Have we pulled this one yet?
No.
Okay, let's see. So the keywords on this card is emotions, but also flow and heart. This says, the element of water invites you to follow your emotions. Inspired from the Tarot Suit of Cups, water delivers its message, focusing on your emotions and the natural flow of the universe. With water comes healing and cleansing energy. However, this card can also represent the need to go with the flow and stop being a boulder in the river of your life. Let the water element flow through the channels of your emotions and embrace it. Open yourself up, free your emotions, and follow your heart rather than your head. To better connect with water, utilize the powers of a cleansing salt water bath, as well as the energy of the card itself. And the mantra on this card is, I flow with the water.
Very nice. Well, he certainly did flow. He went wherever his paintbrush, chisel, pencil took him.
That's right. Yeah. And he didn't even like where he was, but if that's where his paintbrush took him, that's where he knew he needed to be, whether he liked it or not.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little more now about, I guess, some of the news articles from his time. Is this like gossipy or like, what are these articles?
It's interesting that he, as an artist, had publications, not little short tidbits, but really long publications at the time.
Yeah.
The first one I found was from JessDore.com. It's very beautiful. It's very pretty. It's from the Aldine Press from 1869. I summed it up, or I had JetGPT sum it up because it was 2,600 words.
Holy shit. Okay.
Justina, would you read it? It's below this picture, but what do you think of this front page of this art journal?
It is very beautiful. I love how this is laid out. I must say, for its time, the graphic design is pretty on point.
Yes.
I'm wondering if they use Quark Express, because that's what we used back in the day, to the ancient program known as Quark Express, to lay a page out like this. This is very impressive. I really love this. This is something that like would probably look really cool framed.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, like old-fashioned frame.
So it looks like it's like a artist snapshot, but it is 2 pages, not 2 full pages. it's this page we're looking at, and then another complete column, I guess, of paragraphs.
Yeah.
So it is long, but it just seems to be like a highlight of him for the time in New York,
Okay.
which he was not. He wasn't in New York.
Oh, right. So I guess the U.S. got wind of
Mhm.
all the stuff he was doing out in France and England. So this is dated New York, April 18. Does that say 60 or 69? It's so small.
69.
And this is the Aldine Press, a typographic art journal, volume 2, number 4. So this says, Gustave Dore, a prominent artist born in Strasbourg in 1833, has become a household name globally thanks to his prolific and diverse body of work. Renowned for his bold and eye-catching creations, Dore's name is splashed across colossal posters and prominently featured in leading journals, making him a distinguished figure in the public eye. His art adorns countless spaces, from private homes to the enticing displays of new vendors, showcasing his widespread popularity and influence. At the heart of Dore's acclaim is his monumental contribution to the art of illustration, particularly his awe-inspiring depictions of the Holy Bible. His works have been hailed as some of the most extraordinary ever executed, capturing the grandeur, tenderness, and awe of sacred texts without succumbing to clever conceits or somber fancies. Critics praise his Bible illustration as a monumental and vast culmination of his illustrative prowess, placing him in the highest echelons of artists. Dore's foray into illustrated literature aligns with a broader societal shift towards a growing appreciation for well-embellished books and periodicals. In this realm, he stands out not only as a masterful colorist, but also as an unparalleled wood draughtsman. His ability to convey medieval romance with unmatched originality has set him apart, and he has played a pivotal role in shaping the visual aesthetics of illustrated literary works. The artist's journey began in his childhood amid the rugged landscapes of the Vosges, where his innate talent for drawing became evident at an early age. Encouraged by Granville, Dore's path diverged from an intended engineering career to embrace the world of art. His transition from caricatures to book illustrations marked a significant turning point, with the illustrated Rebelle standing out as a noteworthy success. Dore's ventures extended beyond traditional art forms, leading him to journalistic endeavors during the Crimean War. Collaborating on the Musée Franc-Anglais, a journal of engravings depicting key events of the war, showcased his adaptability and creative versatility. While successful in painting, Dore's heart lay in communicating with a broader audience through his illustrations, a sentiment that defined his artistic ethos. Now in his early 30s, Dore defies the conventional expectations of artists. His engagement with Parisian society, marked by social talents, musical prowess, and magical feats, distinguishes him as a multifaceted personality. Despite the demands of his public life, Dore remains unmarried, living with his supportive, art-loving mother. So, is he a scrub?
Scrubs guy can't get no love from me.
I don't want no scrub. So, he's like a spinster scrub.
He is a spinster. Yeah.
Yeah, a spinster and a scrub. So we need to rewrite that song.
Dore is a guy who can't get no love from me.
In a testament to his enduring commitment to his craft, Dore is currently undertaking a series of paintings depicting powerful scenes from Shakespeare. His exceptional capacity for work and dedication to artistic expression continue to solidify his legacy in the annals, in the annals of art history. Gustave Dore emerges not only as a celebrated artist, but as a cultural icon whose influence transcends traditional boundaries, leaving an indelible mark of the world of illustration and beyond.
I wish he did the whole thing like that.
I wish I did the whole thing like that.
And beyond.
Beyond. So another article from archive.org from the Art Journal in 1879, just 4 years before Gustave passed away. Again, we summed it all up in these articles. The book and everything will be linked in our show notes, so please check out our $3 Patreon tier to access those. But if you want to do your own digging, check out our hero.page for those links. There's a lot on him that we obviously can't cover in one episode, but yeah, check that out if you want to deep dive more. We have this article. Is this another Gestor? This is from archive.org. This is titled Gustave Dore and his latest works, and I guess this was published in 1879. So it says the studio of Gustave Dore is as peculiar as his talent. Other artists paint amid a wilderness of bric-a-brac, costumes, and picturesque accessories of every kind. The studio of Escosura, for instance, is a regular museum where the visitor is forced to pick his or her way amid piles of tapestries, fragments of old furniture, splendidly bound books, old dresses, old armor, and a wilderness of other objects. So basically a thrift store.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
This sounds amazing. The vast and splendid studio of Detail, into which a horse can easily be led if required as a model, is full of uniforms, helmets, and weapons, and is also garnished with models of heads for the accommodation of all kinds of military headgear. That of Cabanel has the air of an elegant salon of disproportionate size, an effect to which the appearance of its graceful and courtly occupant, a very picture himself, in his black velvet coat, adds finish and importance. The studio of Dore, like that of Detail, is on the ground floor. It is a vast apartment, so large, indeed, that a temporary partition or a screen or two can rob its dimensions of space enough for a very tolerable room without much diminishing its apparent expanse. No antique cabinets, gold-embroidered stuffs, or choice porcelain are visible in any nook or corner. The walls are covered with gigantic canvases that reach from floor to ceiling. A large table, placed in the center of the room, shows a wilderness of brushes of all sizes, shapes, and dimensions, from the tiniest tip of camel's hair up to a monster that looks like a prodigious mushroom. And there are pictures everywhere on the walls, the floors, the easels piled in corners or leaning against the wall, studies, sketches, heads, art notes of every kind.
Wow.
Yeah. His studio sounds fascinating. Maximalism for sure. So we spoke a little earlier about Gustave's disappointment while working with Philippon and the engravers that were there at the time who were working on his illustrations. This article comes from Cuberus.com entitled Remembered for the Engravings He Sometimes Disdained. So Gustave Dore is most well known for his wood engraved illustrations, yet very few of these were engraved by Dore himself. In the 19th century, before the invention of photographic reproduction, books and newspapers were printed using metal type. In order to include images along with the type, printers had to have drawings or paintings reproduced on, quote, type-high wood blocks so that they could be included with type on their printing presses. Translating a painting into a printable block was simply a part of the commercial reproduction process. Engravers were considered tradesmen, not artists. So if you'd like to know more about this, the colonialwilliamsburg.org site has a really cool page on the different trades throughout history, and we'll link that. Ironically, though, Dore is most remembered for his iconic wood engraved illustrations. Dore himself often complained that the engraving process did not do justice to his images. He would sometimes photograph his drawings, executed directly on the woodblock, in order to preserve the original before the engraver translated it into a print-ready version. It's interesting. When you look at an engraved illustration by Dore, you may notice that there are often two signatures, Gustave's as well as the artisan who did the engraving itself. Dore's work was prepared for reproduction by many such craftsmen, such as Louis-Henri Brevery, Émile Deschamps, and Louis Dumont, Jean Gouchard, Pierre Guzman, Charles Moran, and C. Laplante in the Musée d'Orsay Dore exhibition.
Very good.
Catalogue Editore Felipe Canel. Felipe Canel writes, this is a quote from Felipe Canel. Quote, Dore maintained that his illustrations could not be adequately judged from the wood engravings based on them, and insisted on exhibiting photographs of the drawings as they appeared on the blocks prior to engraving. He did the same for the Bible illustrations, and when his publisher reproached him for exhibiting the drawings before the book was released, the illustrator retorted that his drawings alone could bear witness to his work, which in a sense only existed, quote, unengraved, and could only be thus seen in its true intensity.
He let it slip.
Yeah,
They're his drawings.
He leaked his own work, right? All right. So, did Dore's reputation as a commercial artist undermine his recognition as a fine artist? At age 15, Dore entered the world of commercial art, drawing cartoons and illustrations for Vision of Ezekiel. His vivid imagination and profound skill as a draftsman led to a prolific career as an illustrator. But the artistic tensions between commercial art and fine art were as real in the 19th century as they are today. Though he longed for broader appreciation as a fine artist, for his lush romantic landscapes, figure painting, and sculptures, his fame as an illustrator seemed to always undermine his reputation as a fine artist. I can understand that frustration.
Totally.
Because, like, you know, as an artist, you want to put beautiful things out into the world and you want your art to be marveled at by people, but for some reason, the money, that's not where the money is. And sometimes
Yeah. The
where to
stuff
go
in your brain typically is not the stuff that people want to buy. Like, they don't want to buy your brain. They want the things they like to look at.
consumerism at its finest.
Mm-hmm.
So the contrast between his profound fame as an illustrator and the popularity of his books, his reception at the salon was cool at best. Many of his submissions were outright rejects. I'm drawing a lot of parallels here to the Michael Nyman thing. And those few that were displayed met with relative disinterest. Some openly criticized his paintings and sculptures, imputing to them a sense of literalism, which was clearly out of fashion in the age of Impressionism. But could there also have been resentment to his work because of his success as a commercial artist and illustrator? Did his financial success and popularity undermine his credibility as a bohemian struggling artist, and thus disqualify him in the world of fine art? Such tensions existed then and are still with us today.
So this article, whoever wrote this article, kind of sees that same thing we were talking about. Like, maybe because he had money, he wasn't really, like, I'm picturing Christian from Moulin Rouge, you know what I mean? He wasn't struggling.
Right.
And so you have to struggle for your.
And I mean, we know firsthand, like, we're both artists and we're both creators or creatrixes in our own right. And, like, I'm still barely seeing a dime from anything I've ever created in my 40 years of life on this earth.
I know. Yeah, it
So,
was
I
different times, man. You
hard.
made your money back then as Gustave.
Exactly. I'm wishing I'm seeing some of that money now. I'm not gonna lie.
I know. All right, let's get into those specific Dore pieces that are seen in the Owens Grimoire. So the 3 illustrations or engravings that are in the Owens Grimoire can be seen as Sally is flipping through the book. It's the back portion where those, like, more advanced spells, like the more intense spells, are held. And like Justina said, you can see one in its entirety, but the other 2 are kind of sneaky.
Very sneaky.
We're going to cover the Flood, Don Quixote, the figure in the robe stood up, I think is the full name, and the Visions of Ezekiel, the Vision of the Valley of Dry Bones. So Justina, take it away.
All right, so we'll just give you a brief description and then we'll get into them in relation to the movie. So the first one we're going to talk about is Don Quixote, the figure in the gown stood up, which is an engraving. So is this the one that's, like, front and center in the book? Or was that one of the other ones?
The Flood is the one that is
Flood?
usually front and center. This one, I actually don't think we see at all, but we'll get there. We'll talk a little bit more about ISIS.
The Warner Brothers thing? Okay, yeah. All right, so this illustration, or engraving rather, depicts a dramatic scene where the figure in the gown rises to his feet. We can almost feel the intensity and determination radiating from Don Quixote as he prepares for battle. Surrounded by an army on horseback and set against a backdrop of a battlefield, our hero stands tall atop his trusty steed. The power and grace of both man and horse are beautifully portrayed in this stunning artwork. Don Quixote's unwavering spirit shines through as he embarks on yet another adventure filled with chivalry and bravery. This illustration serves as a reminder that even in the face of adversity, one should never lose sight of their dreams or cease fighting for what they believe in. As we admire this remarkable piece, let us be inspired by Don Quixote's indomitable spirit and remember that true courage lies not only in victory, but also in having the audacity to chase after impossible dreams. I wanted a little context because Don Quixote is a name that you hear thrown around throughout your life, but, like, if I'm being honest, I've never read the book, nor did I even know what the book was about. I think in my mind, I thought he was a real historical figure. I didn't know he was just a fictional character, but he is actually just a fictional literary character for those who have been living under the same rock as me. Just to give a little context, I had no idea who Don Quixote was.
It's a big book. Aaron, my husband, said he read it, and I was like, help me with this. He was like,
Yeah.
I have no idea because there's so many little stories.
Yeah.
And who is it? His Pancho? Is his Sancho? Aaron was saying that a lot of the stories kind of get redundant.
Do
Like
they?
it's kind of the same thing over and over. But
Okay.
tell us what your synopsis is.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of stories written back then are kind of long and drawn out. Real quick, I just actually read the audiobook of The Picture of Dorian Gray. Have you ever read that? It's fascinating, but like some of it's a little drawn out, and it's like, all right, get to the fucking point.
Yeah.
But anyway, Don Quixote is actually a 17th century Spanish literary character, and the protagonist of the novel, Don Quixote, by Miguel de Cervantes, is the author. The book, originally published in Spanish, was in two parts. One was published in 1605, and I guess part two was published in 1615. And it concerns the eponymous would-be knight-errant whose delusions of grandeur make him the butt of many practical jokes. The plot revolves around the adventures of a member of the lowest nobility, an hidalgo from La Mancha named Alonso Quijano, who reads so many chivalric romances that he loses his mind and decides to become a knight-errant, caballero andante, to revive chivalry and serve his nation under the name Don Quixote de la Mancha. It is considered a founding work of Western literature. It is often labeled as the first modern novel and one of the greatest works ever written. I like how he was like, chivalry is dead. Let me revive it and go on all these adventures.
Yeah. Aaron said that he, basically like convinces himself that he is a knight. He is a knight.
Yeah.
And he is supposed to go on these adventures and like,
yeah.
what the fuck?
Yeah, and I mean, spoiler warning, I don't know who's planning on reading this book, but at the end of the book, before he dies, he renounces all of his adventures. And he's like, chivalry is dead, or something.
Oh my God!
Yeah. So I was like,
no, but I wasn't going to read it, so I appreciate you telling me the end.
So, like, he just went on all of that, like, that the writer of the book, that long drawn out adventure to only at the end be like, nope, chivalry is dead, it's fine.
It's like ending a movie where the whole movie has been a dream.
Wakes
right. up.
Yeah, that's such a cop-out. That's such lazy writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But anyway, so before we get into this next section, we just want to throw a disclaimer out there. The following segment is about to get real biblical. It's about to get Jesus up in here. This is in no way to preach, as these do not reflect our personal beliefs, right? I think you could say the same, Kristina. These do not reflect our personal beliefs. However, the Bible, as we now like to call it, Christian folklore, as we deemed it in one of our most recent episodes. So the Bible has influenced art throughout history. That's no secret, right? And even pop culture. And we are just simply, it is our job as these podcast hosts, whatever you want to call us, to try to find the threads that connect this clearly biblical art to this film. And this modern film and modern story, and figure out why it would have such a presence. Why would these biblical illustrations have such a presence in the lives of this pagan family of the 20th century, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it seems like it was such an inspiration to Gustave. I don't know whether it said he was a practicing Christian, what his beliefs were, it doesn't matter. The artwork that comes out of his biblical tellings is beautiful. Like, you can look at something, not know it's biblical, and have one thought about it, and maybe sometimes once you learn what it's about, your view changes. But just looking at these images, look them up if you can.
Yeah,
they're stunning to me.
They are. They're so detailed. They're gorgeous.
The next picture that we're going to talk about that shows up in the Owens book is called The Visions of Ezekiel, The Visions of the Valley of the Dry Bones. This is another biblical representation. By the way, Gustave did 241 just biblical engravings for the illustrations for Le Grand Bible de Tours, for a new deluxe edition for the 1843 French translation of the Vulgate Bible, popularly known as the Bible de Tours. So in this picture, this depicts a grayscale Ezekiel looking down into the valley from his vantage point atop a shadowy hill. The clouds are heavy and epic, and the lightest area of the sky kind of encircles Ezekiel, almost conveying a sort of like halo around him. Below him, strewn on the sandy ground, are hundreds of corpses, some in various states of dress. There are also some figures in full skeleton form, and others have some skin on their bones, and one or two of them are full human form, full skin, and some of them are looking to Ezekiel on his hill. The skeletons look as if they've been writhing in pain and trying to escape their graves in anguish. And on his hill, Ezekiel, his robes are just billowing in this wind as he watches the dead come to life.
They seem like very tortured souls, these skeletons, right?
Yeah.
I like how the one is just like, he's got his arms up with the robe on. He's just like, Jesus. Jesus. Yeah. All right. Do we have anything else about that one?
We'll get into them. We just wanted to put like little snippets of each, and then we're going to dive into why they're in the books and what they're really about.
Right. All right. So the next one and the third one in the book of in the grimoire of the movie, I think this is the one that's front and center, main page, right? Yeah, so this is The Flood Destroying the World from 1866. And Gustave Dore's illustration of the flood is a dramatic portrayal of the biblical catastrophe of Genesis 7. Also, verse 6, Noah is 600 years old, by the way, and this captures the intense emotions and chaos of this apocalyptic event. The scene unfolds under a brooding sky, thick with dark storm clouds and illuminated by flashes of lightning, setting a foreboding tone. Foreboding tone. The rising waters dominate the composition, depicted with powerful currents and crashing waves that engulf the landscape. At the heart of the illustration, Noah's Ark stands as a beacon of hope, a massive and sturdy vessel navigating the tumultuous sea. Surrounding the Ark, desperate figures, both human and animal, struggle against the rising floodwaters, seeking refuge on elevated land. Dore's meticulous attention to detail is evident in the realistic depiction of the destruction wrought upon the world, with partially submerged structures and trees. The overall effect is a poignant and evocative portrayal of the biblical narrative, showcasing Dore's mastery in conveying both the scale of the disaster and the resilience embodied by the Ark. I think most of us are aware, but if you're not, we're here to enlighten. The Christian God is a vengeful God, but everything happens for a reason, as they like to say. So here are some examples, and trust us, this doesn't even scratch the surface. All right, you want to take the Bible stuff?
No, yeah, sure.
I never paid attention in CCD, so I don't even know. Is this book 1, verse 2, chapter 8? How do you say that?
It's usually chapter and then verses. So Nahum chapter 1, verses number 2 through number 8. And this says, "The Lord is a jealous and vengeful God. The Lord is vengeful and strong in wrath. The Lord is vengeful against his foes. He rages against his enemies. The Lord is very patient, but great in power. The Lord punishes. His way is in whirlwind and storm. Clouds are the dust of his feet." Okay. And then Romans chapter 12, verse 19, "Beloved, do not avenge yourself, but rather give place to wrath, for it is written, 'Vengeance is mine, I will repay,' says the Lord." Deuteronomy, fuck me. God is like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 35. "Vengeance is mine and recompense. Their foot shall slip in due time, for the day of their calamity is at hand, and the things to come hasten upon them."
So is God saying that due to all these people's sin, he's gonna wreak havoc upon their lives? Is that what this is saying?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like God's like, you know what I heard the other day? But you know the law, the don't work on the Sabbath day. Like Sundays are usually a day of rest.
Holy day.
I guess in the Bible, the story is, okay, don't work on the Sabbath or you'll be put to death. And this man was picking up sticks in order to make a fire to keep his family warm, and somebody caught him. And they didn't kill him. They brought him before God and said, "Hey, this man was picking up sticks. What should we do?" And God was like, "Did I stutter?"
Oh, wait, is this in the Bible? What?
Yeah, it's in the Bible. I don't know the chapter verse, all that bullshit, but they brought him before God because they were like, "Hey, we saw him picking up sticks. Is this working?" God said, "Was he working?" They said, "Yeah." He said, "Kill him."
God said, "I don't pay overtime." So I guess that's what we're gonna have to do.
Don't dip into my labor costs, please.
It's so funny. So in this context within the Owens Family Grimoire, this page with Gustave's depiction of the Great Flood carried out in Genesis on a 600-year-old Noah is paired with a small handwritten spell on the side of the right page. This little piece of paper is like the others we see in the book, a little yellowed with age, torn edges, and the contents written in black ink. Interestingly, however, the title of this page, which is written across the bottom, says ECAEGNEV in all capital letters, which, when spelled in reverse, actually reads vengeance.
Boom!
Boom. I don't remember what the timestamp in the movie is, but this is basically the scene when Sally is flipping through the grimoire and we see those dark depictions of those, like, dark, foreboding illustrations. This is what we're talking about.
The dark shade of crimson.
The dark shade of grayscale. And the etching and the graving. And yeah, if you guys want to see the pictures that we're talking about, check out our show notes on our Patreon. And also, if you want, to catch this whole thing in real time, $8 tier, you can watch this entire visual episode, so you can kind of, get more of a context of what we're talking about. So let's revisit that slip of paper pasted in the top right hand corner of the page in that grimoire scene. Ironically, this paper covers Gustave's portion of the piece that features the actual ark, Noah's Ark. And we'll talk about our interpretations of this in a moment, but let's just share with you what the contents of this spell contains, okay? So that little slip of paper on the side, it says Ophiodulis, which in Latin it means official, and here are the contents. So the very first ingredient or contents of the spell is questionable because it's very blurry. The handwriting is kind of scratchy. It's hard to tell exactly what it is. I even put this image into like an AI generator to try to get it to clear up or like focus, and it clears everything else up, but like it's still hard to tell like where the letters connect and what it actually says. So is it a wolf? I'm not sure if that says wolf or...
It's very hard. Very hard to tell. I even blew it up here on the side.
It does look like it says wolf. One wolf. All right, so they need one wolf for this spell. Okay. Wine, not surprising. A hawk feather, which we're going to get into a little later on. A hawk feather. All right. Dried periwinkle. An earthworm. Rainwater. One dove heart. Cinnamon. And cinnamon usually gives it that kick, that little extra poof, like to any spell. Egg of a black hen. A toad. This one is also kind of illegible. We're not sure if it's a toad, but it makes sense because we've seen toads in other pages, right? And lesser calendine. Just to clarify, this vengeance spell that she flips to during that scene when she goes to the aunts to bring back Michael is not the resurrection spell, even though that's pretty much what she's talking about to the aunts about in that scene. This vengeance spell is Ophiodulos, while the resurrection spell is the Spiritus spell. And the ingredients are different as well. I just wanted to point that out because I had always thought that when Sally goes to the aunts, she was looking at the resurrection pages, since that's what she's asking the aunts to do. I never realized that the pages she was looking at was actually a different spell, which leads me to my next question. What is the vengeance spell? Was this part of Maria's curse? Since, I mean, we know the grimoire has been passed down. And also, is there no threefold law in the Owens world?
I guess not. I guess not.
I know we've discussed the aunt's code of ethics in the past, and perhaps there really is none, because I'm just wondering how often the aunts have whipped the spell out. And if the first ingredient is, in fact, a wolf, where are they sourcing their wolves from?
I know, what the fuck?
And are they doing the same thing to these poor wolves that they're doing to their doves? My mind is just running wild with these scenarios, and every little ingredient in the spells throughout these pages has piqued my interest.
Yeah, we get the shopping list, but we don't get the recipe. We don't get the how-to.
And how to acquire some of these ingredients, right?
Can you imagine the person who inherited a fucking wolf? How am I supposed to get my hands on a wolf? I live in Boston.
A fucking wolf? Yeah, crazy. So I know you and I had a brief discussion about deep diving when we were talking about doing this episode. We were talking about deep diving into the lesser calendine, but I wanted to touch on the dried periwinkle real quick. So according to Hazel Planchet on Tumblr, and we'll link her blog below. She had a whole page on periwinkle, but I just cherry picked this like little part because it stuck out to me. It says periwinkle is also a potent magical plant and is considered to be the patron herb of witches. Periwinkle has several associations with grieving, spirits, and death. However, her post notes that it is mostly associated with the death of young children. And I know Sally is grieving her husband, but grieving nonetheless.
Right.
And perhaps it was picked by the film's creators of the Owens Grimoire due to the nature of those correspondences. But again, this is a vengeance spell, right? So I'm wondering why elements of grief are incorporated into the page of what would be a vengeance spell. And what are we avenging? What are we avenging, you know?
Right. This page gets that very distinct zoom in, but when she's talking to the aunts, actively talking, I don't think this is the page she's on.
She's not on that page.
She's not on this page. She's not on the flood at all. It's a different page altogether. It has a botanical on it, but it's definitely hard to see. But interesting.
Yeah, a couple other ingredients raised some questions to me as well. The heart of a dove, which is an ingredient used in the 10th love potion, a la Irene, right? We see them use that in another spell in the film and in the books. The toad, used to resurrect Jimmy in the Spiritus spell, right? Also a prevalent thing in the film. And they didn't do a resurrection spell in the book. But still, you know, a big motif throughout the film.
Yes.
I'm wondering why some of these key ingredients for those two other spells used in the film are also used here for vengeance. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, when the Lord took his vengeance on the people of Egypt, he sent them a plague of frogs.
That's right.
There's no cure for grief. If I'm gonna fuck somebody up, if I was into that, I'm not gonna take them out personally. I think I would hit everybody they loved. And maybe the heart of the dove has something to do with that.
Yeah.
I'm going to take my vengeance by making that person watch everybody they love around them fall apart.
Yeah. And then they have no choice but to just be stuck in that grief forever.
Exactly. Yep.
That's
I'm not saying I would do that or anything. I'm just saying
that is worse than death. I like it. I like that outlook. That makes sense. Also, I had a note about the hawk feathers, and going back to the aunt's code of ethics or lack thereof.
Okay.
Do the aunts know that according to the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, collecting feathers is actually prohibited in the United States?
What the fuck?
Yeah. So enacted in 1918, this federal law aims to conserve and protect migratory bird species, their nests, eggs, and feathers.
I've been breaking the law for years.
It covers over 800 bird species, including some of the most iconic ones like eagles, hawks, and owls. The act prohibits the possession, sale, purchase, or even transfer of feathers without proper permits. So, I mean,
oh my God.
Are they getting their wolves and hawk feathers on the same dark web or something? Like, who's peddling the ingredients for these spells to these broads? Like, where are they getting this shit from?
You're amazing. Who would have thought to go on the Migratory Bird Treaty Act?
Well, I was just looking at the ingredients list in this spell, and I'm like, what do these ingredients have anything to do with the spell? And I mean, like, my questions weren't really answered in, like, what it has to do with the spell, but I found other stuff, and then I just went down the rabbit hole of, like, hawk feathers. Well, they actually couldn't use hawk feathers in their spells because it's illegal to even collect hawk feathers. I don't know where the fuck they would even get those then.
They're so funny. That's amazing.
I'm just looking at, from
Who's peddling these ingredients?
I mean, looking at it from a logical perspective.
Exactly.
Or reality perspective.
Right. Let's touch back on the image itself and the placement of this piece of paper over the depiction of the ark. So this symbolizes, to me, a few different things. So first thing is hopelessness. The flood symbolizes a cataclysmic and irreversible change, mirroring Sally's overwhelming grief and the permanent shift in her life. The use of such a powerful image conveys the emotional tempest that Sally is experiencing, emphasizing the hopelessness she's feeling. And by covering the ark, the traditional symbol of hope and salvation, which also I think next week we're going to talk about the dove, and the dove is a symbol of hope and salvation, right? Because the dove came to Noah after the 40 days at sea or whatever.
Maybe that's why he needs the heart of a dove.
There it is.
Oh, duh. Eureka.
This subverts the usual meaning, emphasizing that for Sally, there is no hope or salvation. That slip of paper represents a deliberate choice to avoid false hope and emphasize the grim reality of the irreversible loss.
Well, that's why they put the paper over the ark.
The second thing is her having this loss of control. The choice of a destructive event like a flood could reflect Sally's feelings of helplessness and desperation. She has literally, in this scene, lost all control. For somebody who's so put together, right? And in the Christian mythology of Noah's Ark, there are dual perspectives on the theme of control and faith. So on one side, Noah surrenders all control to his deity, undertaking the construction of the ark on blind faith. And throughout I think it's 40 days and 40 nights at sea. Who knows? That could be Jonah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Noah's God remains the ultimate authority to him, steering the course of events. And this narrative emphasizes an unwavering trust in a divine plan, showcasing the relinquishment of human control in favor of faith.
Mm-hmm.
So on the flip side of that, however, there are those who, in disbelief or defiance, refuse to acknowledge the impending flood. And these individuals, unwilling to accept the divine plan, are swept away by the floodwaters. Their fate underscores the consequences of resisting or rejecting the idea of surrendering control to a higher power. So in the scene from Practical Magic, the covering of the ark may symbolize not only Sally's personal despair, but also the interplay of surrender and resistance in the face of this overwhelming loss.
So real quick, the card we pulled earlier.
Water!
And the flood.
The flood!
Right?
Oh my God!
Relinquishing that control.
Yes.
So just another, I guess, correlation or what's the word? Connection. Yeah, another connection.
Very good call. Yeah, good call. So the visual impact in the metaphor, the powerful and iconic image adds that visual impact to the scene. And along with the music that's chosen, and they get this one as again gets that really quick zoom in.
Yeah.
This is Sally's emotional turmoil. The depiction of all those like writhing bodies on the rock face in the turbulent sea are just so reminiscent of what's turning around inside Sally's heart and mind at the moment. That desperation, the clamoring, the chaos.
Yeah.
Feeling that closed off future in isolation. The act of covering the ark conveys a sense of that desperation and isolation that Sally has to accept. She's got to accept that the reality is there's no hope, and she has no assistance from the aunts in terms of bringing Michael back from the dead. It just can't be done.
Right. We're going to talk a little bit about that, like, I guess, acceptance and reality a little bit later on.
Awesome. What are your thoughts?
These points are fascinating. Symbolically, I would have never thought to correspond all of those things that she may have been feeling with the visuals in the grimoire. The fact that they flash across the screen so quickly, it's almost like subliminal.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, even the sound design kind of gives you that sense of foreboding.
Yeah.
While she's flipping through that book, there are some really unsettling sounds that they use, like that bassy hiss or like a growl kind of sound, like when it zooms in on that page. And it definitely is unsettling. And even though the spell that this image is used for is not the resurrection spell, it still gives you that ick feeling, right?
Yes.
When the aunts say he'll come back as something dark and unnatural.
Mm-hmm. And also in like the biblical sense, the bodies that are featured in this illustration, most of them are naked.
Yeah.
And nakedness, that's a no-no. So already, if you are a Christian or if you're not, looking at somebody else's naked body, as we talked about in our Skyclad episode, that is infringement on that person's vulnerability. That's a no-no.
So let's talk about our next image, the visions of Ezekiel, the vision of the valley of the dry bones. So we have some more Bible verses here, Kristina. So you wanted to tell us about Ezekiel, what is discussed in that chapter?
This was actually kind of fun to search for. Yeah. Searching for this particularly, I came across Ezekiel 37 verses 1 through 14. Here we go. Enter biblical music.
Oh God, what's biblical music?
I don't know. Like Gregorian chants.
Yeah, do it.
Says, The hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of a valley. It was full of bones. Also, this interpretation, I think, is like the new translation or something. It's very literal and kind of repetitive, so hang tight.
Okay.
He led me back and forth among them, and I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley, bones that were very dry. He asked me, Son of man, can these bones live? I said, Sovereign Lord, you alone know. Then he said to me, Prophesy to these bones and say to them, Dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make breath enter you, and you will come to life. I will attach tendons to you and make flesh upon you and cover you with skin. I will put breath in you, and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord. So I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I was prophesying, there was a noise, a rattling sound, and the bones came together, bone to bone. I looked, and the tendons and flesh appeared on them, and skin covered them, but there was no breath in them. Then he said to me, Prophesy to the breath, prophesy, Son of man, and say to it, This is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, breath, from the four winds, and breathe into the slain, that they may live. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath entered them. They came to life and stood up on their feet, a vast army. Then he said to me, Son of man, these bones are the people of Israel. They say, Our bones are dried up, and our hope is gone. We are cut off. Therefore prophesy and say to them, This is what the sovereign Lord says. My people, I am going to open your graves and bring you up from them. I will bring you back to the land of Israel. Then you, my people, will know that I am the Lord. When I open your graves and bring you up from them, I will put my spirit in you, and you will live, and I will settle you into your own land. Then you will know that I, the Lord, have spoken, and I have done it, declares the Lord.
And then they all do the Thriller dance.
Yeah.
That is creepy shit. Dude,
Yeah.
that's in the Bible?
So, yeah, I hope nobody's freaking out right now. Again, we had the disclaimer. This isn't turning into a Bible podcast. Thank you for sitting through that with us. This context is very important because this scripture literally talks about raising people from the dead. I'm doing the Italian hands. Now, you might be thinking, like, I don't remember this page. Where was that image? Okay, so when we sat down and we spoke with Isis Chandler of Pagan Scrapbook Supply, she shared with us that when designing her book, she had access to the actual prop book that was out on display at the Warner Brothers studio. And in this display, within the back portion of the spellbook, that reverse side with all the dark and more advanced magic, are 3 pages. When that section of the book is opened, even within the movie, you can see whoever is reading that has access to 3 pages at once. However, if you look very closely, there is a frame in the movie in which you can see the edge of this page. You can see on the page the illustrated bone in the bottom corner.
Mm-hmm.
It's covered up. It's the scene of the page flip is the big bird wing that they have inside the Book of Shadows.
That's a very quick flash of that page.
I pulled this into my video editor and I went click by click, scene by this is
Frame by frame.
frame by frame.
Very fast. Yeah, I also did the same thing when I was going through it last night.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was like, I don't even remember seeing that bird.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This flashes by. So, again, it's like so fast, it's almost subliminal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gustave's illustration of Ezekiel in the Valley of the Dry Bones is it's going to be the first page on the left hand side. And on that page, I don't know if this was also included in the original book, but the replication page that we got from Isis, it says envy on this Ezekiel page.
Right.
And I'm interpreting this as Sally's envy of Ezekiel and his ability to raise the dead. Not directly. We don't know, actually see her or hear her say this. We barely see the page in this scene at all. But I do find it interesting that the production team, whether they read the scripture or not, chose this specific page about resurrection.
I would be curious to pick Isis's brain a little more and see if she included the word envy, or was that was on the actual page at the Warner Brothers studio?
Mm-hmm.
Because
yeah, Isis, if you're listening, let us know.
Yeah, because her pages aren't they replicas of what she found at the Warner Brothers studio, aside from whatever is available to see in the movie? Because this page was not in the movie. Right. It was hidden by that bird page. Can you see what that little white ripped up piece of paper says? It's very
I
small.
could. It does not say anything really. Let me
Okay.
get my file open real quick.
Yeah.
And zooming, enhance. On that ripped piece of paper, it says projected, and then under that, it looks like it says host, and then it's torn off. Attaching, then it's torn off. Shock, got, and that's it.
All right. If anybody knows what those words might mean or have anything to do with anything, email us at magnoliastreetpodcast@gmail.com. We'd
There you
love
go.
to know your input.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if this was a happy accident on the on their part, as far as I guess the people creating this grimoire for the film, or maybe we're just reading into it and finding our own connecting threads. I don't know, but if that is why they included this page, then it's pretty brilliant and a sneaky subliminal way to convey more visually exactly how Sally is feeling, even if we're not seeing the entire page and it's just a quick flash on the screen. I also wanted to note that envy is also one of the 7 deadly sins, which in Roman Catholic theology are the 7 vices that spur other sins and further immoral behavior. According to Britannica.com, the 7 deadly sins can be thought of as dispositions towards sin and separation from God. The deadly sins were a popular theme in morality plays, literature, and art of the Middle Ages in Europe. And morality is the moral beliefs and practices of a culture, community, religion, or a code or system of moral rules, principles, or values. And going back to the aunts and their code of ethics, or lack thereof, again, this envy page in their grimoire just raises more questions about their lack of ethical conduct when performing magic. Just how many times have they used this page? Or these darker spells in this section of the book? Like, I'm sure they'd have no problem doing this shit for Irene if she paid them enough. But the fact that they don't want to use it for Sally speaks volumes about how much they love her and will do anything to protect their family. So that seems to be the only time that ethics matter to them, is when it's to protect their family.
Right. Oh, you're so right. Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, if they're getting enough money, fuck it. Yeah, sure, we'll do that. We'll do the envy spell. We'll do the resurrection spell. Something dark and unnatural? That's fine. That's your own cross to bear. That's your fault to deal with once it's done and, said and done. Now that's you. Once you open the floodgates, can't undo it.
Be careful what you wish for.
Careful what you wish for. Exactly.
Very gray. They're very gray witches.
Right. Yep.
Touching back on the 7 deadly sins thing, again, I'm going to plug our WMSR episode, session number 5, the Jimmy's Beelzebub Bash. We discuss those sins, the 7 deadly sins, and their connection to the 7 princes of hell. Again, I'm reading the Dante's Divine Comedy, so this plays a big part. I know Satan is in this one, but to touch on this a little bit more again, the sins and the princes. So Lucifer is connected with pride, Mammon is connected with greed, Asmodeus with lust, Leviathan with envy, Beelzebub with gluttony, Satan with wrath, and Belphegor with sloth. Yeah, that episode, WMSR, we talk about even more Dante's Divine Comedy, Milton's Paradise Lost, and those soul-stealing baddies of the underworld. Check it out.
I would be more interested to deep dive on Leviathan since it's associated with envy, and envy is the phrase on this page.
Right.
So I'm wondering if Leviathan is more connected with this story in some sense, or like the themes and stuff. So we should look into that.
Oh, you know what comes up? You know what fucking comes up on this Wikipedia page? The first picture is The Destruction of Leviathan by Gustave Dore.
Shut the fuck up.
It is the first thing that pops up. So the Leviathan is some kind of sea serpent. I won't read this whole thing.
Yeah.
It's a sea serpent noted in theology and mythology. It's referenced in several books, the Hebrew Bible, Psalms, the Book of Job, Isaiah, Amos, Jonah, and the Book of Enoch. And in the Book of Job, it's a reflection of the older Canaanite Lotan, a primeval monster defeated by god Baal Hadad. Didn't we talk about Baal as another name for Beelzebub?
Yeah.
All right.
All connected.
It keeps getting better and better. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right, interesting. So lastly, we have on that same three-page spread, on the far right panel, Gustave's illustration entitled Don Quixote, the figure in the robe stood up. This was a little tricky to find, but leave it to Christina's cousin, Allie, what's up, who straight up went to a library and found us the info we were looking for because I failed you because I was eating pancakes at IHOP.
You didn't fail me at all. No, 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 no.
Christina messages me to look this shit up while I'm like slamming pancakes back at IHOP on a Sunday.
Yeah. So I texted her. Let me just read you the little text. She said I could. I asked her if she knew anything about it because I had thought she read it. She had an Italian version. She had this written in Italian, and I know she speaks a lot of languages. I said, "Do you know anything about where to find this chapter?" She said, "I love a research project. When do you need an answer by?" This was Sunday, by the way. I said Monday night.
Oh shit.
I said I didn't know if you knew off the top of your head. If not, no biggie. I thought you mentioned you had read it a while ago. She said, "I actually haven't read Don Quixote yet, but I'm sure I can figure out what chapter that illustration is from." That she has the book just chilling on her shelf in Italian. I said, "No worries, I'll just keep Googling. It's totally fine." Then a couple hours later, she messaged, she said, "It's chapter 35 of Don Quixote." I said, "What? Oh my God, you found it?" She said, "Yeah, it's right at the beginning of the chapter. It's the second paragraph in the edition that I have. The figure in the robe is Death." I said, "That's amazing. How the hell did you find it?" She said, "I went to the library." So cute.
That's such an arbitrary answer. I went to the library. Like, try it sometime, Christina.
And the funny thing was, I was at Books a Million. When I was texting you, I was driving home from Books a Million and I was flipping through the chapters. I was looking, but I guess the book I was looking through didn't have any illustrations or anything, so I wasn't finding it.
Yeah.
So I was doing I was researching. She
Yeah.
said, "I found a book of Dore's illustrations, then compared it to the chapter titles in the text of Don Quixote." Told her I was just there. I said, "Send me your Venmo. I owe you a coffee or something." She said, "No, it's all good." She said, "Any excuse to go to a good library."
Oh, I love that.
I said, "She's hired."
That's impressive.
It is. So thank you,
Wow.
hon. I love you. Thanks, Allie.
Oh, thanks, Allie.
Yeah. So why don't you take us through a little bit of chapter 35? There is, you'll see below, a quote that comes from this robed figure. You can read all of it if you want. It's up to you. It's kind of long, but you're a very good reader, so I'm sure it'll be fine. Whatever you want to do.
All right, so this is from Don Quixote, chapter 35, and this says, "They saw advancing towards them, to the sound of this pleasing music, what they call a triumphal car, drawn by 6 gray mules with white linen housings, on each of which was mounted a penitent, robed also in white, with a large lighted wax taper in his hand. The car was twice or perhaps 3 times as large as the former ones, and in front and on the sides stood 12 more penitents, all as white as snow and all with lighted tapers, a spectacle to excite fear as well as wonder, and on a raised throne was seated a nymph draped in a multitude of silver tissue veils, with an embroidery of countless gold spangles glittering all over them, that made her appear, if not richly, at least brilliantly, apparelled. She had her face covered with thin, transparent sendal, the texture of which did not prevent the fair features of a maiden from being distinguished, while the numerous lights made it possible to judge of her beauty and of her years, which seemed to be not less than 17, but not to have yet reached 20. Beside her was a figure in a robe, the engraving, a robe of state, as they call it, reaching to the feet, while the head was covered with a black veil. But the instant the car was opposite the Duke and the Duchess and Don Quixote, the music of the clarions ceased, and then that of the lutes and harps on the car, and the figure in the robe rose up, and flinging it apart and removing the veil from its face, disclosed to their eyes the shape of death itself, fleshless and hideous, at which sight Don Quixote felt uneasy. Sancho frightened, and the Duke and Duchess displayed a certain trepidation. Having risen to its feet, this living death, in a sleepy voice, with a tongue hardly awake, held forth as follows: "I am that Merlin who the legends say the devil had for father, and the lie hath gathered credence with the lapse of time, of magic prince, of Zoroastric lore, monarch and treasurer, with jealous eye, I view the efforts of the age to hide the gallant deeds of doughty errand knights who are and ever have been dear to me. All right, so we will link this whole poem in our show notes, but this one section that's highlighted says, and touched with pity, first I turned the leaves of countless volumes of my devilish craft, and then in this grim, grisly skeleton, myself encasing, hither have I come, to show where lies the fitting remedy, to give relief in such a piteous case.
And in this chapter, I think Don Quixote meeting death like this, death is like, I am known to give terrible presents and a death, but I'm going to take pity on you and give you this kindness, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Allie, for helping us with this. This was awesome. And it's intriguing to draw the connection between Don Quixote and Alice Hoffman's practical magic, particularly in the scene where this page shows up in the film. In the excerpt that Justina just read, the arrival of the triumphant car with death seated by a nymph draped in silver tissued veils fits quite perfectly. The scene can be seen as a symbolic representation of Sally Owens's initial reluctance to acknowledge her husband's passing. The beautiful woman in Don Quixote sits next to death, mirroring Sally's desire to hold on to the semblance of some kind of normal life, despite the looming presence of death seated beside her. But also, on the same token, this is my opinion, by the way, the Owens women are no strangers to death. They walk side by side it every day. That's all they talk about is their dear Ethans who kick the bucket.
Yeah.
Apart from the scene where Sally is begging for Michael to be brought back, all of the other women, all of the other Owenses, besides maybe Regina, are accepting of this curse of death. They know the signs to look for, aka the Death Watch beetle, and the one rule, never fall in love, as well as the idea of sacrificing themselves to death for someone else because they walked so closely with it throughout their whole lives, perhaps.
Yeah.
So. And also the Reaper the Reaper for sure gets a bad rap. And I think that having somebody there when you do pass, nobody fucking knows what happens when you die. But that Reaper is supposed to be the comforting thing, not the skeletal shit that you see, that man has created. It's supposed to be a comfort. So you're not scared. Somebody to hold your hand, somebody to hug you, somebody to carry you forth, And I think that the Owens women, some of them see it that way and continue to thrive in their lives, to live deliciously.
Yeah.
And then there's, Sally with the brand new loss, the brand new grief that she's experiencing.
Or Regina, who went the complete other way and just wanted to end it all because she just couldn't deal with that reality and that grief.
Yes. Yeah.
I have some takes. Are you ready for this? Because
I'm ready.
I just exploded. Yeah, I read your take and then I was like, I have some shit I have to say. So I'm not sure if this has to do with anything or if I'm just reaching for ways to connect this ancient piece of literature with a 20th century film. But did you notice that in Don Quixote, I don't know how much of the wiki page you read or anything about the summary or the synopsis of the book, but in Don Quixote, the chapters are not called chapters. Do you know what they're called?
Mm-mm.
Each chapter is called a Sally.
Shut the fuck up.
Do you find that weird?
What the fuck? That's amazing.
Each chapter is called a Sally. So each chapter or Sally marks a point in the protagonist's journey. And that, to me, reminds me a lot of the Fool's Journey of the Tarot. And a lot of movies follow this formula because it pretty much sets up the fool, which is the protagonist, and they go through this cast of characters along on their journey, and each character is an archetype and it pinpoints pivotal moments in their story. So if we're thinking of the Fool's Journey and the Death card, which in chapter 35 seems to be when death makes its presence in Don Quixote, death is the moment when the fool of the tarot, or the protagonist, if we're talking about a film or a book, lets their old self go, along with any of their tired beliefs and their habits that are holding them back. It's a spiritual end and a brand new beginning that allows them to transition to a far more fulfilling way of life when they, I guess, meet that death archetype. So, if we're drawing parallels between the death chapter in Don Quixote and how Sally is dealing with the loss in the film, I think it's pretty interesting because her husband's death was pretty much the turning point in her life, as far as the audience is able to see anyway. Once her husband Michael passes away, she is forced to come to terms with who she really is, a woman who was born into this family whose husbands keep dying through no fault of their own, other than they all share this Owens blood. Once she loses him, she is forced to go on this personal journey, or her own, quote, Sally, like that in Don Quixote, a journey of self-discovery.
So on the nose.
I have chills. She has to really learn who she is as a person in this adult world. She has to navigate being a single mom to two girls. She's got to nurture a relationship with a sister who is just emotionally and physically unavailable. Her presence is not in Sally's life as much as she wants her to, but she still works hard to nurture that relationship with her sister despite their distance. She's got to run a new business. She's got to attend the phone tree. She got to kill a man twice, bury him, get away with murder, and just figure life out as she's going along.
Yeah.
So this entire shit show seems more like the dreaded Tower card, if you ask me, which is truly an upheaval of the ugliest kind. And whenever the Tower card comes up in a reading, people are like, "Oh God, what the fuck is coming?" Because it will turn you on your ass. It will. Oh yes. However, these kinds of shifts are so powerful and essential to any sort of personal growth. Mm-hmm. And what do you know? Once she went through that personal transformation, she attracted the one thing she wished for when she was a child, a man who couldn't possibly exist. So it's like the universe kind of rewarded her for coming to accept who she truly is. And as a result, she saves her sister from Jimmy's wrath. She, quote, breaks the curse, as she would like to think anyway. And she gets the guy in the end.
Yeah.
So according to Wikipedia, Harold Bloom, an American literary critic, says, Don Quixote is the first modern novel and that the protagonist is at war with Sigmund Freud's reality principle, which accepts the necessity of dying. Bloom says that the novel has an endless range of meanings, talking about Don Quixote, but that a recurring theme is the human need to withstand suffering. So perhaps the creators of the film's grimoire were trying to draw parallels between Don Quixote's outlook on Freud's reality principle and Sally's inability to accept all the death and grief she has dealt with in her life since she was a young child. She even says when she takes the book out, when she goes to the aunts to bring Michael back, she says, I know you can do it. I know you can do this. I remember I found it here when mommy and daddy died. So clearly she's been refusing to believe death is a part of reality since she was a young child. And due to her PTSD that has never been dealt with and been brushed under the rug, because clearly the aunts have hawk feathers to source and wolves to source. Like they have other shit that they're worrying about to deal with the young kid's PTSD.
Yeah.
So she has been stuck in this mental headspace of a child ever since, prohibiting her from experiencing any sort of personal growth. So a little more about the reality principle. I'm about to get really psychological.
Dude, you're blowing my mind. You're blowing my dick off right now.
It's about to get real existential up in here. But in Freudian psychology and psychoanalysis, the reality principle is the ability of the mind to assess the reality of the external world and to act upon it accordingly, as opposed to acting according to the pleasure principle. The reality principle is the governing principle of the actions taken by the ego, also known as the id, after its slow development from a pleasure ego into a reality ego. So in infancy and early childhood, the id governs behavior predominantly by obeying the pleasure principle. Maturity is the slow process of learning to endure the pain of deferred gratification as when reality requires it, a process Freud saw as fostered by education and educators. So maybe the aunts, they had to step in and maybe guide her
through
that and kind of teach her without being like, this is the pleasure principle. This is
yeah.
You're not going to get scientific with it, but like they could have done it in their way to help Sally grow and flourish as she matured and grew into adulthood. But she was stuck in that child brain because nobody ever helped her deal with those, I guess, repressed emotions.
I have a question. Is this saying, as children, children's imaginations are incredible. And as we get older, that becomes a lot harder. So the pleasure ego is that having these daydreams and fantasies and playing pretend, and then the reality ego, as you grow older, you learn the rules, and usually it's by educators in school and peers. And
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much, because when she goes to the aunts, she just expects them to just bring Michael back. She thinks like that's in her reality, like that can actually happen. But the
Right,
aunts
right,
are like, doesn't work like that.
right.
So like she's stuck in that like child mentality that she thinks she's just
That magic will fix everything.
yes,
Mm.
yeah, like she's in denial and she's just pushing away reality still as an
I have
adult.
goosebumps right now.
Yeah. So, okay, so yeah, so the result is the mature mind's ability to avoid instant gratification in favor of long-term satisfaction. So, if we're analyzing Sally in this state of denial after Michael dies and her reverting back to what she saw when her mom and dad died, it is clear that she's still reveling in this child state of mind, her id, coming out from this place of ego, acting selfishly and according to the pleasure principle. She just wants him back. She just wants her parents back. She wants Michael back. Make it happen now, right? Make him come back. I know you could do this.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it doesn't work like that. So because reality and all the death that is part of that reality, it's so uncomfortable for her. She
Hmm.
still isn't mature enough to handle the heaviness of reality because of all those undealt with repressed trauma, right? That
Right.
she experienced losing her parents as a child. So
Yes.
the last thing I'll say is this. I did a Google search for, quote, what is the moral of the Don Quixote story? And what popped up was a blurb by Robert Siegel, a writer for NPR.org, who says, one must live life in a genuine way, passionately, in spite of what other people think.
Oh,
That is the central tenet of Don Quixote. And is that not the same moral practical magic of these women who are ostracized by their town for centuries until Sally
100%.
until
Yes.
Sally went through her own spiritual awakening and broke that cycle. Only then she was rewarded with the life that she truly wanted.
Oh, so
I
good.
think that I still like I have chills. Like I think that the parallels are very apparent now that we've done this deep dive, and I must say that I am intrigued.
Good.
I am intrigued.
Good. Yeah, I wanted to know what you thought about this topic because it was kind of a newer topic in the last couple months that made it on our list.
Yeah.
And I saw it and I was like, that sounds fucking dope. Because I remember seeing the illustrations and I was like, there's got to be a lot here. I just did not know how on the nose, how on point this Gustave Dore's illustrations for two different publications. One's the Bible, one is Don Quixote.
Yeah.
Were it can't be an accident. These set designers can't be doing this on accident.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. There's so many parallels as we have discovered today, and I am speechless how everything just kind of just fit into that. Everything just makes sense.
Mhm.
It works.
Yeah. We hope you listeners enjoyed this episode as well, between the books and the articles and the Bible. These notes took a little while to put together. And I'm glad we were able to talk about it today. I loved learning about this man, Gustave Dore, and his special place in practical magic, and we hope you did too.
No, I really did. And it's not the first thing I would have put on the list of topics because it is such a flash in the movie. Like it goes by so fast. And if you're really not paying attention, kind of like, I didn't even know the toads were a thing until we started this podcast. I was like, oh, the toads is in the spell book. That makes sense. We should
Yeah.
talk about toads. So I'm glad that you picked this as a topic. And thank you for taking the reins on this one because this is not something that I would have ventured.
Sure.
And putting all these notes together. And thanks again to your cousin because she really came through with.
And yeah, the clincher. Yeah. No problem. And again, we're going to gravitate toward different things and really get just grabbed and shaken by certain topics. And I just wanted to deep dive on this guy, just like with you and Stevie Nicks or you and Michael Nyman. Like you had this force, you did all the work on those, and putting this together was fun. It was informative, but getting your insight is why we do this also. And you were able to put that in yesterday. And I loved what you put in. Thank you for adding all that stuff. It's just thought provoking for sure.
Right. Yeah. It's always interesting to go down the psychological avenue and bringing the tarot into it. Because most people don't really see the tarot. People see the tarot as witchcraft or
Mhm.
arcane or, something maybe, just something about the occult that's dark and scary. But if we really like pick apart the tarot, it really is more psychological and more involved with personal development than we even give it credit for. So
Yeah,
I
it's an amazing connection.
thought it would be interesting to throw that thing in the mix.
Yeah,
So,
but the fact that the quote unquote chapters are called Sally's, come
yeah,
on,
right?
come on.
Yeah, I was like, am I reading that right? What? Why is this called Sally 1, Sally 2, Sally 3? I think there's 3 Sallys in Don Quixote.
Okay.
And I'm like,
Okay,
who's
so it's like
Sally?
the parts, not so much the chapters, but the parts of the book, kind of like
Yeah,
Alice
like
Hoffman does parts.
yeah, like the different sections that mark the different journeys, the
Mm.
different legs of his journey. They're called a Sally, which is weird. I don't know. Yeah.
So let me ask you, out of these 3 images, these illustrations, which one's your favorite?
I really like, because I'm a gothic ass bitch, the the Ezekiel one, the visions of
Yeah.
Ezekiel, the vision of the Valley of the Dry Bones, because it's just like skeletons at a rave. It just fucking
It
looks, it looks sick. It looks awesome.
is.
I would unce with all of them. Get up and do the Thriller, and it would be a fucking good time. It would be
That is a fucking meme. Just a little thought bubble over Ezekiel.
I would unce with them. That's gonna be my next Halloween party.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one.
So good stuff.
My favorite is still the casting out of Lucifer, but between the 3 of these, I think the Don Quixote one is too Ku Klux Klan looking for me.
Yeah,
There's
I
all
was
these.
getting that too.
You were thinking that too? Okay, because there's
Yeah,
all these figures in white robes with the eyes
white
cut
room.
out, carrying torches. Okay, so
That actually reminded me of that scene in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
oh
So
yeah,
you know what I fucking did? I went
what?
to Google and I was like, Don Quixote, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou connection. And I wasn't finding anything.
Okay.
Mostly the stuff in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is connected with the Odyssey, and
Hmm.
that's what was coming up. So I'm not sure. I'm sure Ezekiel is connected with Oh Brother, Where Art Thou in some way, shape, or form, because Where Art Thou, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou has such biblical references just like peppered into there, but most of it's the Odyssey. But I was thinking maybe there is a connection because that specific scene of
Yes.
that KKK meeting is what popped in my mind when I saw this image.
Yes, I agree. I'd like the flood. I think it's epic. It's epic. But the Ezekiel one reminds me of that, like, hey, what's your name? Ezekiel. Hey, fuck you, Ezekiel.
Oh,
Tony and Ezekiel. That's those are the guys' names.
Tony.
Tony.
Tony and Ezekiel.
To touch Tony. Nope, that's not it.
Tone
Anyway,
it down.
Tony
Tone it
turned
down, Tony. This was great. I said, is that all? That's all we got for today, right?
that's what we have. That is just a little bit summed up of Gustave Dore. There's 3 books, there's articles. Go check him out if you want to dig deeper. You can see all his works on the website. All the links will be in our hero page, and here's how you can find that.
The link is in our show notes. And thanks again to our patron and Palmiers for creating this app and keeping creators like us organized. If you guys do want to support the podcast on Patreon, you can support us for as little as $1 a month. That's our seedling tier, and that gets you access to our patron-only polls where you get to weigh in on what topics you would like us to talk about next. It also gets you our monthly calendar so you can see what topics we have coming up for the month, and it also gets you a welcome shout out on the show. Our $3 Lavender Bud tier gets you our show notes for each episode in an aesthetically pleasing PDF, our after hours posts, if there's any extra tidbits or behind the scenes info pertaining to any of our episodes, we'll post those along with the blog post or extra photos, and access to our specially curated Spotify playlists. We have created playlists for our WMSR episodes as well as Production Dream playlists for each song episode, and more. Our $5 Lilac tier gets you access to our private Facebook community where we host a monthly live stream. Plus, you'll get access to our Discord server where we host our monthly watch parties. And also on the Discord, you can join in on the discussion with other Magnolia Street neighbors via the various interesting channels and threads. And then here's the $8 Rose tier. This gets you access to extra audio visual content such as a once a month full-length video episode, unlimited bonus videos, uncut footage, cutting room floor footage, footage, bloopers, outtakes, meditations, exclusive interviews, and old home videos from the vault, or spell or ritual videos, and more. It also gets you bonus content to coincide with our song-a-sos, such as full-length demo streams of our original Practical Magic inspired music, plus lyric sheets, guitar chords, and original scratch demos, or bonus video performances of our songs and more. Lastly, we have our $15 Wisteria Vine tier. Just like a twisting Wisteria Vine, there's a way for you to stay connected with us, the Stinas. In this tier, we invite you to join our private Marco Polo video messaging app. The app is totally free for both Android and iOS. Sign up with your phone number or email, and we will help you do the rest. This is a great way to chat with each other in a more intimate group setting, face-to-face via video recording. We love to show each other our pets, our gardens, or anything else you'd like to share. And just a reminder that the higher the tier you sign up under, the more rewards you get, because you get all of the rewards of the tiers below it. You can upgrade or downgrade or even cancel at any time. So to support the podcast, head to patreon.com/Magnolia Street Podcast.
Yeah, and there are additional ways to support us and our podcast that don't cost you any money. If you do listen on Spotify, please give us a star rating. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, please give us a written review. We love sharing those on our Instagram. And if you're on Instagram, we would really appreciate any reposts or blurbs about our podcast. And make sure to tag us at Magnolia Street Podcast in your feed, posts, stories, and share us with your Practical Magic loving friends.
So we do have merch. Check out our Teespring. The link is in our Koji bio on our Instagram.
Find us everywhere, Magnolia Street Podcast.
Yeah, and email us, magnoliastreetpodcast@gmail.com. We want to know your input. We want to know your insight on any of the stuff we talk about, and we would just love more people involved in the discussion. So that's all we got for today, guys. We hope you enjoy this. I'm Justina.
I'm Kristina, and we'll see you next time.
At the house on Magnolia Street, would you go